Asher, look at this. You totally called it. The trolls are getting annihilated in the comments. Huh. Chloe Vance had a smile on her face that could have outshone the sun. Oh my God, look at this one. I'm prepared to work myself to death at a moment's notice. Where do I submit my application to Vance Corporation? And this one too. The internet is on fire today. She leaned against him on the living room sofa, her laughter causing a slight, distracting tremor. Lawrence and Eleanor Vance watched from across the room, a deep sense of satisfaction warming their faces. When they were kids, Chloe had been Asher's shadow, clinging to his side. But as they grew up, a chasm had formed between them, turning their relationship into a cold war. Seeing them like this again, so full of life and warmth, was a greater joy than any business deal. Asher, however, was only half present. Chloe's rapid transformation was almost giving him whiplash. He managed a polite, tight-lipped smile, but her cheerful chatter was just background noise. All he could think about was Leo Flynn. He needed to kill him. He had to see what would happen to this world, to this bizarre, scripted reality, if he simply ripped the protagonist out of the story. Would the entire universe just break? He had so much to do. It wasn't just about Leo. It was about the Dragon's Den, the sprawling organization propping him up. If he didn't end it in one clean strike, Leo would inevitably follow the classic novel formula. Retreat, find some miraculous power-up, and return for a bloody, city-leveling revenge tour. The classic story of the downtrodden hero rising up to crush the arrogant young master. And why was Leo the hero? Because Asher now realized, with a grim certainty, that every single one of the story's designated heroines had somehow developed feelings for him. Scarlet, the she-devil, was a given. But Anya, the Dragon Queen, Lena, and the A-list star, Jessica Young, the girl next door. Even Cassie Lee, who was trying so hard to shed her past. They were all in his corner. That made Leo Flynn the world's biggest cuckold. Later that night, after Lawrence and Eleanor had said their goodnights and headed upstairs, pleased to leave the kids to reconnect, the atmosphere in the sprawling living room shifted. The silence settled, thick and heavy. Then, in a blur of motion, Chloe's expression hardened, and she launched herself at Asher. What the? He never saw it coming. The little sneak went for a full-on tackle, throwing all sportsmanship out the window. And she was using her secret weapons, too. This was an outrage. He tumbled back onto the sofa cushions with Chloe on top of him. His mind was racing, a five-alarm fire of panic, but his face remained a mask of calm indifference. He was a professional, after all. What are you doing? Are you insane? He grunted. Get off me before I get angry. I wanted to do this for a long time, Ash, she whispered, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Stop messing around. Wait, why are you crying? Did I do something? He was completely baffled. Her eyes had suddenly reddened, her nose turning pink as tears welled up, transforming her into a picture of heart-wrenching vulnerability. He'd seen her look this hurt once before at the airport, but what was happening now? Chloe traced circles on his chest with her finger, her voice a choked whisper. I have a story, big brother. A secret. I was going to take it to my grave. A secret I only ever told Anna. But when I heard you were going to fight Leo, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Asher's confusion deepened. I decided to fight Leo, and suddenly all you heroines are in on it? Is it trending on Twitter? Am I the last to know? Ping, no. There was no ping. In the back of his mind, he felt something sever. A connection he hadn't even known was there, suddenly gone. He didn't have time to process it. Chloe bit her lip so hard a tiny bead of blood appeared. Then, she spoke the words that shattered his reality. I'm a regressor. She paused, waiting for his reaction. But she heard nothing. No inner monologue, no shocked gasp of thought. Asher's mind was a blank slate to her. He was just staring, his mouth hanging open in a perfect O. For the first time in a long time, the unshakable Asher Vance was completely and utterly floored. Seeing his shock, Chloe knew she couldn't just leave him hanging. She couldn't read his mind anymore. She was flying blind. But she couldn't bear to see him so lost. She needed him to understand. The burden of living a life of silent sacrifice, of loving without hope of recognition or reward. She had done it once already. She didn't know this world, or anyone in it. Another lifetime of silent suffering. All she wanted was for the person she loved most to hear her story. What was so wrong with that? She started talking, and with every word, every painful memory she shared, the carefully constructed calm on Asher's face began to crack. To test her, he threw out a question, a detail about their shared past only he would know. She answered instantly. Then, she told him things he couldn't possibly know. She told him what happened after he died. For 2 hours, she cried in his arms, her story pouring out of her like a dam breaking. The story of his death, of their family's ruin. The story of how she'd hunted down Leo and killed him, only to fall into a spiral of grief and addiction. Hearing it, Asher's fist clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. He silently cursed the system, its parents, its grandparents, and every ancestor it ever had. The system, as usual, remained silent. He also noted that the usual reward notifications, which should have been popping up during such a dramatic plot point, were conspicuously absent. He brushed it off, assuming he hadn't met some hidden criteria. His focus was entirely on the rage. His death hadn't been the end. The idea of a clean slate was just a comforting lie the dead tell themselves. His parents had buried their son. His family had been destroyed. Instinctively, he pulled her closer, holding the trembling girl in his arms. They clung to each other, a silent promise passing between them. In that moment, there was no man, no woman. Only family. Only a brother protecting his sister. Where was Scarlett? She was spending the night with her parents. And Anya? Conducting business with Zara Thorne. Hearing Chloe's confession, everything clicked into place. Why she'd suddenly return home. Why she'd been acting so strangely. All the little things that had never made sense now formed a single, horrifying picture. So, everything that happened in the last life. Asher finally managed to choke out. Chloe looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. She hammered a small, weak fist against his chest, the impact feeling heavier than a freight train. I know everything. Ugh, I was so in love with you. Can't you see that? Leo Flynn was never even on my radar. All those times I acted out, all those fights. I was just trying to get you to see me. But you didn't understand. If I just told you sooner, maybe none of it would have happened. Thank God I got a second chance. I came back just wanting to give you a peaceful life, to protect you from everything. But maybe me coming back was the butterfly that caused the hurricane. Things changed anyway. And now I feel so helpless. I don't want to lose you again. I don't want to lose you. Do you understand? A sudden surge of strength filled her, and her grip on him tightened, her nails digging into his arms. The minor pain was nothing. His heart ached with a pain 1,000 times worse. He was made of flesh and blood, too. As she screamed out her grief, her rage, her desperation, Asher just held her. He watched her, and he stayed with her. Sometimes, silence is louder than words. A quiet presence, a steady hand. That was worth more than any empty platitude. Time ticked by. Eventually, her storm passed, leaving an exhausted calm in its wake. She fell asleep in his arms. Asher's eyes glinted with a dangerous new light. Go back. What was real and what was fake anymore? Did it even matter? He had wanted to check out, to coast through this world as a detached observer. But that was impossible. To be alive is to have a purpose. Otherwise, you might as well be dead. If this world, if this goddamn system is so determined to keep me here, he thought, his resolve hardening into steel, then why not play along? If this is my reality now, if there are people here I need to protect, then I'm done coasting. I'm done just getting by. A cold, predatory smile touched his lips. Leo Flynn, Asher Vance, is back. And this time, you're going to pay back every last thing you took from me. With interest. I swear it. The night was still and silent. Exhausted from her emotional outpouring, Chloe slept soundly, her head resting on Asher's chest. His shirt was damp with her tears. I won't let any of you suffer in this life, he vowed silently, his gaze turning as cold as ice. This all started with me, so I'll be the one to end it. Chloe hadn't just told him her story. She had told him everyone's. In the previous timeline, they had all loved him, but he'd been too oblivious, too wrapped up in his own apathy, to notice. He grimaced. He thought he was cleverly messing with the plot by flirting with the heroines before the story officially began. He'd succeeded, all right. He'd shattered their programming from the very start. What a mess, he thought, cursing the system again. You could have given me a heads up, you useless piece of code. All that effort, and for what? It all led back to the same damn place. But amidst all the shocking revelations, there was one more bombshell. Chloe wasn't his biological sister. He'd always half-joked that he was the one who was adopted. He never imagined it was her. And as that new reality settled in, another, far more inconvenient reality made itself known. Damn it, little Asher. Can't you behave yourself for 5 minutes? He chided himself. So what if you're not related by blood? She's still your sister. It wasn't something he could control. With Chloe's formidable assets pressed against him for so long, even a saint would be tempted. Thankfully, she didn't stir. Taking a deep breath to compose himself, he carefully gathered her into his arms and carried her to her bedroom. If his parents found them like this, they'd both be grounded until they were 30. After tucking her in, Asher returned to his own room. He didn't sleep. His mind was a whirlwind of plots and strategies. The next morning, he felt more energized than he had in years. For the first time, he felt an all-consuming, desperate need to destroy someone. All right, let's think. Where would our crooked-mouthed dragon king be hiding? He muttered to himself. Manny Marcos' place, his own private villa, or maybe with Julian Nightmare Kai, one of the dragon's den's top 3 fighters. The troll farm was probably Kai's operation. Time to return the favor. He arrived at Vance Corporation headquarters before the sun had fully risen, surprising his secretary, Jasmine Jiang. Mr. Vance. Good morning, she stammered. Have you had breakfast? I'm not hungry. If you haven't eaten, I can have something sent up. Oh, hot. No, that's okay. I've eaten, she lied quickly. Good. Jasmine, I need you to pull everything you can on the Marcos and Kai families. Those 2 second-tier families? She asked, puzzled. That's them. Mr. Vance, what are you planning? Jasmine blinked, her wide, curious eyes fixed on him. There was something different about him today, a new edge. It made him even more masculine. Asher offered a thin smile. He had grown up overnight. It wasn't a change in his appearance, but in his soul. He'd spent so long treating this world like a game, a playground he'd eventually leave. He'd kept everyone at arm's length, even knowing they weren't real, because he didn't want to cause unnecessary harm. But how could he have been so naive? What do you think I'm planning, Jasmine? He asked, his voice soft but laced with steel. She tilted her head, thinking for a moment before shaking it honestly. I'm sorry, Mr. Vance. I don't know. His smile gentled. I'm going to bankrupt them, he said, his tone casual, as if discussing the weather. I'm going to dismantle their families, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. What do you think of that? Jasmine's jaw dropped. She stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Asher could be arrogant, domineering, even cruel, but he always left his opponents an out. He never went for the kill shot. It was one of the things she admired about him, his good side and his bad. She loved all of it. But this was total annihilation. The shock lasted only a second. Then, her expression hardened with resolve. Of course, Mr. Vance, she said, her voice unwavering. Whatever you need. If you want to go after the 4 great families next, I'll be right here. If you want to take on the entire world, I will stand with you and fight. This time, it was Asher's turn to be stunned. In his newfound clarity, he was seeing beauty everywhere, in the most unexpected places. It was a connection that transcended romance, friendship, or family. It was loyalty, pure and absolute. Acting on instinct, he pulled his beautiful, fiercely loyal secretary into a hug. She stiffened for a moment, like a startled rabbit, but when her eyes met his, clear and devoid of any pretense, she relaxed into his embrace. She'd always wanted this, dreamed of it, but there had always been a line. For now, at least, this was enough. Mr. Vance, she whispered. Shh, just be quiet, he murmured. Don't think about the past. Don't worry about the future. This is all that's real. Right now. His voice was like a spell, calming the frantic beating of her heart. The chaotic thumping slowed, sinking into a steady rhythm between them. She had always felt safe in his arms, but this was different. This was security on a soul-deep level. Half an hour passed. Her breathing evened out, and she drifted off to sleep. Asher held her for a moment longer before gently carrying her to the wide sofa, laying her down as if she were made of glass. He covered her with a blanket before walking to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing down at the bustling city below. Is this fake? Is it real? Was the world, I remember the real one? Or was it just a dream I concocted to escape this one? He wondered, watching the river of cars and people. Maybe they're both just projections, illusions. But the people, the connections, the consequences, they're real. If they're here in my life, it's for a reason. He paused, his eyes narrowing with the predator's focus. If that's the case, he said to his reflection, then I need to start living for real. No more holding back. No more fear. If I went back to my old world now, knowing what they would suffer here, I could never live with myself. Even if this is just a movie, I have to play my part. I have to do the right thing. For my parents, for the people I love, and for the people who love me. At Vance Corporation, Asher's word was scripture. Since his marriage to the she-devil, Eleanor had happily become a hands-off manager, and Lawrence was already planning his retirement. Their goal was simple. They wanted grandchildren. All the money and power in the world meant nothing in the end. They were ready to help raise the next generation. Eleanor already had a file of designer baby clothes prepared and was constantly lecturing Scarlett on the importance of having at least 3 children. a plan Scarlett wholeheartedly endorsed. But that was a matter for another day. Today, under Asher's command, Vance Corporation moved like a weaponized financial storm. Jasmine, now awake and energized, immediately began executing his orders. As the undisputed powerhouse of New York City, towering even above the four great families, the Vances could crush two second-tier families without breaking a sweat. Their immense capital was their confidence. By noon, it was a massacre. For the Marcos and Kai families, it was the apocalypse. One by one, their partners called, severing all ties. It wasn't just business, it was social excommunication. At the Marcos family estate, the head butler delivered the news to Manny Marcos, his face a mask of despair. Leo Flynn, lounging nearby, looked more furious than Manny himself. The butler had figured out. This disaster had Leo's name written all over it. Young master, none of the distributors will buy our seafood shipment from a port. The weather's cold, so we have a few days, but if this continues, how will we pay our staff? The butler lamented. It's not just the port. Every single one of our businesses is being squeezed. Vance Corporation put out the word. Anyone who does business with us is blacklisted. Leo shot to his feet. Who at Vance Corp gave the order? He demanded. The butler shot Leo a look of pure loathing, finally letting his resentment show. Asher Vance, he spat, each word dripping with venom. Are you satisfied? Young master, forgive my outburst. I have more fires to put out. He bowed to Manny and retreated. That bastard, Leo roared, slamming his fists on the table. He's gone too far. This is a declaration of war. Manny sat in stunned silence, his face pale. The empire his father and grandfather had built was gone. In half a day, their properties were still there, but they were worthless. Who would dare work with them now? His so-called friends, the uncles and allies who were always so eager to collaborate, had vanished. Leo, just go, Manny said, his voice hollow. I need to be alone. The unwavering faith he'd placed in his leader was beginning to crack. Leo took a deep breath, a flicker of pain crossing his face. This was a calculated loss. The Marcos family may be gone, but the Dragon's Den is your home now, he said with grim determination. My empire is your empire. I'll give you half of all my assets. Whatever you need, just say the word. For years, Manny had been his most loyal dog. Leo wasn't just giving away his hard-won fortune. He was buying that loyalty for the wars to come. Manny's eyes widened, a wave of gratitude washing over him. The Dragon's Den was larger than his family's business. It couldn't compare to a titan like Vance Corp, but it was more than enough. Still, the victory felt hollow. Leo, that's yours. I can't take it. Don't give me that crap. Leo snapped, grabbing Manny's arm. His heart ached at the thought of the money, but he put on a brave face. My assets are your assets. I've seen your loyalty. There's no one else like you in this world. I, Leo Flynn, give you my word. Manny was once again overcome with emotion. Just then, an angry voice cut through the air. Then what about me? Julian Nightmare Kai stormed in, his face a thundercloud. The situation in his family's company was just as dire. Leo's brow furrowed. What happened to you? Huh. Julian let out a cold, bitter laugh. Seeing the genuinely confused looks on their faces, his rage subsided slightly. Whatever happened to the Marcos family happened to mine. Leo and Manny exchanged a baffled look. It made sense for Asher to target Manny. Their connection was well known. But Julian? As far as they knew, he had no beef with Asher. Did someone in your family piss that psycho off? Leo asked. Julian shook his head. Absolutely not. I had my people check. That doesn't make sense, Leo pressed, zeroing in on the problem. Asher doesn't even know you. Why would he come after your family? How the hell should I know? Julian shot back, his temper flaring again. He'd come here looking for answers, not to be interrogated. Leo's eyes narrowed. A thought struck him. Was it because of the trolls? Manny's head snapped up. Yeah, you said the guys you hired were professionals, that they couldn't be traced. Julian was speechless for a second. Give me some time to look into it, he stammered, his bravado gone. I'll have an answer for you by tonight. He turned and left in a hurry. His hasty retreat did not go unnoticed. It was a flashing neon sign of guilt. Think he's hiding something, Leo? Manny asked, his voice cold. Probably not him directly, Leo mused. More likely one of his idiots left a trail. In that moment, they were united in their anger. Leaving a trail was a cardinal sin. Manny's family was gone because of this screw-up. He didn't care about any so-called brotherhood with Julian. He was going to get his pound of flesh. Back at Vance Corporation, Asher's mood was buoyant. You did a great job today, Jasmine, he said, a genuine smile on his face. What would you like as a reward? Anything you want. And this was only the beginning. He was done playing by the rules of the plot. He was going to kill Leo Flynn. And if the system or fate itself tried to stop him, he'd burn this whole world down. Feeling emboldened, Jasmine's playful side emerged. I don't need a reward, mister. Vance, she said with a cheeky grin. Just give me a little kiss. She'd seen his movie, The Agents, 30 times. She'd replayed the scene where he was shirtless in slow motion until her laptop overheated. The request was a joke, a bit of harmless flirting she never expected him to take seriously. But in the next second, she felt a soft pressure on her cheek. Mwah. Thump, 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 thump. Jasmine froze, her wide eyes staring into space. Happiness had struck like a tornado, leaving her delightfully disoriented. He actually did it. It wasn't a kiss on the lips, but a kiss on the cheek was more than she had ever dreamed of. Her knees felt weak. Asher smiled. Did you think I was joking? This loyal secretary had done so much for him. Yes, he paid her a salary, but her dedication over the years went far beyond any job description. In a last life, she had almost certainly joined the heroines in their fight against Leo. Now that he was determined to defy fate, he knew his time here could end at any second. He might as well grant the wishes of the people around him while he still could. If I suddenly launch an attack on the Marcos and Kai families, do you think the other second-tier families will be shaking in their boots? Thinking they could be next, he mused. Jasmine's earlier awe melted into a sly smile, followed by a cold snort. They're just a pack of hyenas, mister. Vance, you could do whatever you want. Don't worry about what a bunch of nobodies think. You're encouraging me to be a tyrant, Asher said, his tone playful. If you want to be a tyrant, then I'll be your wicked consort. What's wrong with that? Jasmine was flying high, giddy from the kiss. Her boldness had reached new levels. I have a wife. Puffed. Just like that, she was brought back down to earth, her face flushing a deep crimson. To ease her embarrassment, Asher continued, I'm not a madman. I have a reason for everything I do. I don't go after people who don't provoke me first. In a city this big, why would I single out the Marcos and Kai families? Think about it, Jasmine. Remember all those trolls that popped up online last night? The pieces clicked together in her mind. Her blush was still visible, but her expression turned to one of shocked realization. Mister Vance, are you saying you suspect those two families were behind it? Asher's smile was sharp. Be more confident. Take suspect out of that sentence. Oomph. Those bastards got what they deserved. A fire of indignation ignited within her. A moment ago, she'd worried their attack was too harsh. Now, she realized it wasn't harsh enough. They shouldn't just be left to wither. They should be utterly eradicated. Not even their real estate should be left standing. She felt a sudden, urgent need to do more. Call my sister, Asher instructed. Have her get in touch with a woman named Raina Gao. Tell Raina I need her to dig up every last one of those trolls and find concrete proof of their connection to the Marcos and Kai families. I want all of it compiled and sent to us. Then, take that evidence to our legal department. Give it to Franklin Archer. He'll know what to do. Asher was avoiding going home for as long as possible. The thought was awkward. He understood Chloe's feelings now, and the fact that they weren't related by blood. He needed to give her a few days to cool off. Besides, he was with Scarlett. A relationship with Chloe was impossible, regardless. He had only ever seen her as a sister, and nothing would ever change that. Jasmine nodded obediently, asking no questions. She would follow his orders to the letter. If Eleanor or Lawrence questioned the move, she was fully prepared to take the blame, to say she had misunderstood Asher's intentions or had been overzealous. The responsibility would be hers. After she left, Asher walked to the window and stretched. Maybe I should go see Jessica, he murmured to himself. If he weren't the villain, if Leo Flynn and this whole scripted world didn't exist, he probably would have married his childhood friend, Jessica Young. Back when they were kids, before the Van Cess were the undisputed kings of New York, their families were on equal footing. They were a perfect match, but this world was full of nothing but malice for a transmigrator like him. Pushing the thought aside, he remembered a business plan he'd been drafting. He pulled it from his desk. In the last life, Jessica had bankrupted her family trying to help him. Chloe had told him everything. He owed her more than he could ever repay. A romantic relationship was off the table, but he could at least give her this, a plan to secure her family's future. He called in a department manager, one who handled their joint ventures with the Yangs. Take this to the Yang Corporation Tower, he said. Deliver it personally into the hands of Jessica Yang. And Manager Shaw? Yes, Mr. Vance? The female manager asked. Tell her it's for me. After she left, Asher poured himself a glass of wine. To the point of no return, he toasted the empty room. You knew I couldn't go back, you piece of shit system, and you played me like a fool. You think this is fun? Fine. I'll drag Leo Flynn to hell with me. Let's play for keeps. What do you say to that? The system remained silent. Manager Shaw, hello. What brings you here? A senior executive at Yang Corporation asked. I have a delivery from Ms. Yang from Mr. Vance. From Asher. Yes. You can get it to me. I'll make sure she gets it. I can't. Mr. Vance's instructions were to deliver it to Ms. Yang personally, Shaw replied politely. The executive understood and led the way. Ms. Yang has a packed schedule these days. I'm not sure if she's even in her office. Follow me. In a spacious, luxurious office, piles of documents towered on the desk. Jessica Yang was drowning herself in work, taking on tasks meant for her entire secretarial staff. They said time healed all wounds, but for Jessica, time was dragging by with agonizing slowness. She wished she could close her eyes and erase every memory of Asher. Work was her only escape. At first, it had helped. Now, it was barely making a dent. Clatter. The pen slipped from her tired fingers. She looked down at her pale reflection in the polished desk and gave a bitter, self-deprecating laugh. He doesn't care, so why should you? She thought. Maybe it's time to leave, to start over somewhere new. She bent down to pick up the pen and began browsing for flights on her computer. A new city, far away from here. That was the only answer. Just as she found a flight to the West Coast, leaving in 2 hours, a knock came at the door. Ms. Yang, it's me. Come in, she said, not looking up from the screen. You're just in time. Book me a ticket to Los Angeles. I want to be on that flight this afternoon. Her secretary, Emily, blinked in confusion. Yes, Ms. Young. And all these files on my desk. Have the team rehandle them. Of course, Ms. Young. That's our job. Was there something you needed? Oh, right. Emily remembered why she had come. She quickly explained that Manager Shaw from Vance Corporation was outside with a personal delivery from Asher. That bastard. Jessica's mind screamed. After you ignored me, now you crawl back? Well, I'm out of your league now. A few seconds passed. Well, what are you waiting for? Bring her in. Jessica snapped. No, wait, I'll go myself. You're too slow. Muttering under her breath, she practically ran out of the office, her high heels clacking against the marble floor. Manager Shaw was taken aback by the personal greeting. Ms. Yang, hello. Where is it? The thing he sent. Ah, right here. Shaw quickly handed over the manila envelope. Jessica snatched it, her voice turning sharp. Did he have a message for me? Shaw thought for a moment. He did. Jessica's heart, which had been dormant for weeks, began to beat again. What did he say? He said to make sure I gave this to you personally. That's it. That's it. Show her out. Jessica's voice turned to ice. She spun around, marched back into her office, and slammed the door behind her, leaving 2 stunned women in the hallway. Back inside, a wave of regret washed over her. She had acted like a petulant, spurned lover. The anger returned, hot and fierce. Go to hell, she yelled, flinging the envelope across the room in a single fluid motion. She sat back down in her chair, but her eyes kept drifting to the discarded file on the floor. 5 minutes of agonizing internal struggle later, Jessica finally caved. She picked it up. What would he possibly send me? Jessica thought, her brow furrowed as she tore open the envelope. It wasn't a letter. Who even writes letters anymore? With a sigh of disappointment, she glanced at the first page, planning to toss it aside. But then she stopped. Her eyes widened. This is a business plan. It was in his handwriting. She'd recognize it anywhere. Her mind raced as she scanned the pages. The further she read, the more her astonishment grew, her mouth forming a perfect O. The document detailed a sweeping strategic vision, listing dozens of companies, some she knew, most she'd never heard of. It identified them as future titans in emerging industries, laying out a meticulous plan for acquisition and investment. It covered everything from real estate development in overlooked districts to tech startups on the verge of breakthroughs. This wasn't just a plan. It was a roadmap to an empire. After a long time, Jessica finally set the papers down, taking a deep breath. She knew exactly how valuable this was. In the hands of any small company, this document could build a corporate giant within 5 years. Its potential was even greater than her volcanic clay formula. That was a bestseller. This was a dynasty. With this, she could not only rebuild the Yang family's fortune, but surpass the other great families to reclaim their spot at the top. But what do I need all this money for? She whispered to the empty room, her nose stinging. What I want is you. She hated that Scarlett didn't mind sharing, because she did. The childhood friend losing out to the girl who showed up later. It was a bitter pill to swallow. After letting out her frustration, Jessica read through the plan again, a new fire igniting in her eyes. Everything the Yang family lost, I will take back, she vowed. And everything I lost, I will take that back to... Knock, knock, knock. Ms. Yang, it's me. Your flight is booked. Come in, Jessica said, a smile gracing her lips for the first time in weeks. Her secretary entered and saw her boss looking radiant, a healthy color finally returning to her cheeks. Cancel the flight, Jessica said, her voice filled with newfound energy. Yes, Ms. Young. And there's something else I need you to do. Anything, Ms. Young. News of Asher's swift and brutal takedown of two second-tier families spread through the city's elite circles like wildfire. The other families huddled together in fear, terrified they might be next. This is insane. Are there no rules in business anymore? Calm down. That madman didn't target you. Look what happened to the Marcos and Kai families. His parents should have never let him take over. Who's going to dare work with the Van Cess now? Are you kidding? People are lining up to work with them. As long as we all stick together, that psycho won't touch us. He can't make an enemy of everyone. Despite their blustering, no one was brave enough to be the first to stand against him. The Marcos and Kai families, however, had nothing left to lose but the court of public opinion. They launched their counterattack, weaponizing the media. They gave tearful interviews, painting themselves as the humble victims of a corporate titan's unprovoked rage, conveniently omitting the fact that they had fired the first shot. They spun a tale of a ruthless young master destroying their livelihoods, leaving thousands of innocent employees jobless. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Back at Vance Corporation, the phones were ringing off the hook. Lawrence Vance had called 3 times, Eleanor once. Scarlett hadn't called, but she sent a simple text. I trust you. By late afternoon, Jasmine walked into Asher's office, her face flushed with anger and exertion. All set? Asher asked, pouring her a glass of wine. Jasmine nodded fiercely. All done. Those bastards. Pretending to be innocent. Do they have any shame? Here, Asher said, handing her the glass. You've earned this. After she had taken a sip, Asher's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold command. Tell Franklin Archer it's time. Release everything. In that moment, Jasmine thought Asher had never looked more handsome. Good afternoon. I am Franklin Archer, an attorney with Vance Corporation's legal department. The man on the screen offered a calm, almost gentle smile. Vance Corporation had called an emergency press conference, and it was being live-streamed across every major news platform. The scandal had been trending for hours, and the viewer count quickly soared past 10 million. The chat was exploding. Oh my God, I made it in. Wait, is that Franklin Archer? And he's smiling. Archer smiles. Someone dies. I think I'm about to be served. Someone call the cops. That man is a menace. The Van Cess are finally responding. Think they'll deny it. At the press conference, a journalist stood up, her voice sharp with righteous anger. Vance Corporation has destroyed 2 families, jeopardizing the jobs of thousands of innocent people. Do you have any remorse for this blatant abuse of power? She was positioning herself as a champion of the little guy, confident that the immense public scrutiny would protect her. Franklin Archer's smile never wavered. Before I answer your question, he said smoothly, I'd like to show everyone a few things. Some chat logs and some video calls. The journalist blinked, confused. What is he playing at? On the massive screen behind Archer, images began to appear. First, screenshots of encrypted messages between the Marcos and Kai families, explicitly contracting a black hat PR firm. Then, chat log from the firm's managers, delegating tasks to an army of trolls. The instructions were clear. Slander Vance Corporation, but focused the most vicious attacks on Asher Vance. The pay scale was even listed. $50 per negative comment, $3 $100. A buy 2 get 1 free deal on character assassination. The live chat erupted in laughter and outrage. LOL, their troll farm manager failed basic math. I knew it. I'm so sorry, Asher Vance. The Marcos and Kai families are absolute scum. They start a war, lose, and then play the victim card. Some people in this chat were saying Vance Corp should have just forgiven them. So, if someone punches you, you're supposed to offer them your other cheek and then lick their shoe. The journalist's face turned beet red. She had been so sure of her moral high ground. Now, she was the clown in the center of the circus. Shall we continue the interview? Archer asked, his voice still infuriatingly polite. She could only manage a weak nod, sweat trickling down her back. Meanwhile, in a government office downtown, Lawrence Vance had been enduring a day from hell. His colleagues had been giving him sympathetic, pitying looks all morning, with a few of his rivals barely concealing their glee. Then, the press conference happened. The mood shifted instantly. Ahem. Lawrence, my apologies. I admit I spoke too loudly earlier. You've raised a fine son. You free for dinner tonight, Lawrence? My treat. A small apology. My boy is looking for a mentor, Rich. He'd learned so much from your Asher. Just to be an intern, anything. Lawrence's head was spinning. The sheer, glorious vindication was overwhelming. He had always known his son was a troublemaker, but this was different. This was masterful. He graciously accepted his colleagues' apologies, and as soon as they left, he slammed his fist on his desk. "That's my boy," he roared to the empty room. He was both incredibly proud and furious. How dare those families attack his son, and then play the victim? He decided right then and there to get involved himself. He would make sure they never recovered. That night, the internet was a war zone of reversed opinions. The truth was out. The Van Cess were not the bullies. The Marcos and Kai families were the villains of the story, and the public pressure on them became immense. For Manny Marcos and Julian Kai, the fallout was catastrophic. They were the heirs, but their families were not their personal kingdoms. Now, having destroyed their family enterprises, they were branded as traitors. A disgrace to the family. Grandfather Marcos roared over an international call. "I put so much faith in you, and you squander generations of hard work in a single day. How will I face our ancestors?" Manny's hand trembled as he held the phone. The empire his family had built, both in the light and in the shadows, had been annihilated by Asher Vance. Across town, Julian Kai was receiving a similar lecture. Being a feared fighter was one thing. Running a family business was another. He had failed spectacularly. "Damn you, Asher Vance. You gone too far," Leo Flynn screamed, flipping the dining table over. Dishes shattered across the floor. He had planned to use the media storm to cripple the Van Cess reputation. He never imagined they had hard proof. "Leo, it was that bastard Julian Kai," Manny said, his face a cold mask of fury. "He screwed us." "He screwed himself," Leo corrected, though he knew Manny was right. "He didn't mean to betray us. He was just incompetent. He left a trail." Manny's eyes were bloodshot. That moron had come to them demanding answers, when it was his fault all along. "I'm going to kill him," Manny hissed. Because of Julian's mistake, the Marcos family was gone, and he had been humiliated by his own relatives. He needed blood. "Give me some time," Leo said, thinking fast. "I'll help you get your revenge." Manny stared at him. "He ruined me, Leo." Leo took a deep breath, his own heart bleeding from the losses. "My master has connections in this city. This isn't the time for infighting. The main enemy is still Asher Vance." They had no more room to retreat. This was it. For the first time since returning to the country, Leo Flynn, the head of the Dragon's Den, felt truly cornered. He had to destroy the Vance family. He had to make every woman who had ever looked down on him grovel at his feet. Hearing Leo's resolute tone, Manny's anger was replaced by a surge of devotion. "Just say the word, Leo. I'll follow you through hell itself. My life is yours." Leo was inwardly pleased. A loyal dog like Manny was a rare find. It was a testament to his own charisma. His master was about to get involved. These were just minor setbacks. "What are your orders, Leo?" Manny asked eagerly. The Marcos family fortune was nothing compared to the future Leo could offer him. Leo clapped him on the shoulder, his voice filled with practiced gravitas. "For now, we lay low. We wait for word from my master. I still have resources and funds overseas. When the time is right, we will return, and we will take back everything that was stolen from us." I'm not just saying this to sound impressive. I'm telling you that what is mine, I will reclaim. And what isn't mine, I'll take that too. The speech left Manny mesmerized. In that moment, Leo was not a defeated leader, but a titan gathering his strength, a sun about to rise. Manny knew he had made the right choice. So what if he'd lost his family's money? It was their money, not his. This was an investment in his future, a chance to prove his loyalty to a great man. It was the best deal he'd ever made. "So we still have a chance to win," Manny said, his eyes shining with renewed hope. Leo nodded grimly. He hadn't wanted to play this card, but he had no choice. "I'll spend the next few days contacting these old allies, calling in some favors." He laid out a rough plan for Manny, his most trusted subordinate. He couldn't trust Julian Kai anymore. That boy was a born traitor. Once trust is broken, the rift only widens. At the Vance estate, Asher had finally returned home. He was worried Chloe might do something reckless, but Scarlett was there, which provided a buffer. He was also there to face his parents about the day's events. He needn't have worried. Lawrence praised him for his decisive action, and Eleanor simply planted a proud kiss on his cheek. After a surprisingly pleasant family dinner, his parents retired, leaving Asher, Scarlett, and Chloe alone in the living room. The three of them stared at each other in a tense triangle. Finally, Chloe broke the silence. "Brother, Scarlett knows too." She gestured between herself and Scarlett. Scarlett looked at Asher expectantly. Both women were focusing intently, not on his expression, but on trying to hear his thoughts. They heard nothing. Asher let out a dry, self-mocking laugh. It felt like he was the butt of a cosmic joke, the only person in the world who wasn't in on the secret. Scarlett and Chloe exchanged a panicked look. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Chloe swallowed hard. Brother, don't you have anything you want to say to us? In your head. Scarlett leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. Yes, Ash. Anything at all. Asher had a million things to say, but didn't know where to start. He was still processing everything. Again, the two women drew a blank. His mind was a fortress. Where had the connection gone? Asher noticed their strained expressions. Are you two okay? Was the food not to your liking? No, we're fine, Chloe said quickly, changing the subject. Brother, what's our next move against Leo Flynn? Asher considered it. We dismantle his hidden support network. We cut him off at the knees. You know who they are? Scarlett asked, then caught herself. To him, it must have sounded like she was asking how he knew. I have a friend, Asher said, his face a perfect mask. Scarlett nodded quickly, not pressing further. For the next half hour, they listened as Asher listed names and organizations, which the two women meticulously recorded. It's getting late, Asher said finally. We can start on this tomorrow. Scarlett told him to go shower, saying she and Chloe had some things to discuss. The moment Asher was gone, their composure shattered. What happened? Why can't I hear him anymore? Chloe whispered frantically. I don't know, Scarlett said, rubbing her temples. This complicates things. I can't predict his predictions anymore. They talked for a while longer, but came up with no answers. For now, they had to focus on the main objective, destroying Leo Flynn. The next morning, they began making calls, mobilizing their own networks to track down the people on Asher's list. At the same time, a senior Vance executive, Director Ning, paid a visit to the Song family estate. The Song family was one of the top second-tier families in the city, powerful but known for keeping a low profile, quietly building their strength. The family patriarch, Old Man Song, was all smiles. Director Ning, this is a fine vintage, and these are some small trinkets from my personal collection. Please, a humble gift for your troubles. Director Ning shook his head. Mr. Song, I'm only here as a messenger. I can't accept these. Nonsense, the old man insisted. You came all this way. This is a personal gift, from me to you. The Van Cess have been very generous to us. After some polite back and forth, Director Ning accepted. He delivered the Van Cess message, an offer of partnership, of shared profits and opportunities. For the Van Cess, it was a small concession. For the Songs, it was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to climb to the very top. No one in their right mind would refuse. Less than an hour after Director Ning left, another set of guests arrived. Leo Flynn and Manny Marcos. Old Man Song welcomed them warmly. Leo presented his master's token, and the old man's eyes misted over with nostalgia. Young man, you are your master's disciple. She was a magnificent person. After she saved my life all those years ago, I have thought of her every day, wondering how I could ever repay the kindness. That old biscuit wasn't taken. Leo and Manny stormed out, muttering curses under their breath. They considered themselves models of self-restraint for not beating the old man senseless on the spot. Dad, they're gone, a square-jawed middle-aged man, Mr. Song, reported as he entered the room. They didn't take a single biscuit. Good, Old Man Song said, settling back into his armchair. Give them to the staff. They can take the leftovers home. Mr. Song looked conflicted. I've always taught you to repay your debts of gratitude, his father had told him 1,000 times. But this... The old man saw the confusion on his son's face. Do you know what they wanted? They wanted our entire family to commit suicide with them. They wanted us to go to war with the Van Cess. Could I agree to that? Mr. Song was stunned. They can dream on. Exactly. The patriarch nodded. Your master saved me. That's true. But over the years, we've provided funds, we've opened doors, we've done more than enough to repay that debt. And as for the biscuit, he added with a scoff, I remember now. It was stale. I offered them 200 fresh ones. I'd say we're more than even. The younger Song nodded emphatically. The family business was the product of generations of struggle. They weren't about to throw it all away for two deluded young fools. This only reinforced their decision. Sticking with the Van Cess was the only path forward. Meanwhile, Leo and Manny were fuming. They had been utterly humiliated. Leo made a mental note. When he returned to power, the Songs would be the first family he destroyed. They spent the rest of the day visiting other families, old allies of Leo's master. The story was the same every time. They would be welcomed as honored guests, treated to fine food and drink, and showered with praise for Leo's master. But the moment Leo revealed his intention to challenge the Van Cess, their faces would change, and they would be politely, but firmly, shown the door. Hope dwindled with each rejection. Leo stared at the token in his hand. Was it cursed? At the last house, he finally snapped. "You're all afraid to die. Is that it?" He roared, his sudden outburst silencing the room. "My master saved your lives. She helped you build your fortunes. And this is how you repay her? If you wanted to die back then, you should have just done it." The men in the room, initially intimidated, remembered who was backing them now. "You've gone too far, boy," one of them retorted. "We've helped you plenty over the years. Do you think you could have gotten this far without us? Besides, who are you to demand our entire family fortunes? Are you speaking for your master or for yourself? Shut up, all of you," Leo yelled, unleashing a wave of energy as he slammed his hand on the table, shattering it into splinters. The men flinched, but one of them stood his ground. "Go on then. Kill us. We'd rather die than follow a thug like you into ruin. This isn't some lawless country overseas. We'll call the police." The day ended in total failure. Leo was mentally and emotionally exhausted, cursing his absent master. What kind of useless trash had she surrounded herself with? Beside him, Manny's entire worldview had crumbled. Following Leo had always seemed like the right choice. Now, for the first time, he saw no future. "Don't worry, Manny," Leo said, trying to sound confident. "Today we just met the cowards. There are still true warriors out there." Manny forced a weak smile. "Right. Not everyone is a spineless coward." "You understand me, Manny," Leo said, clapping him on the back. "You've had a long day. I'll go alone tomorrow." He couldn't let his most loyal follower see him fail again. The invincible image he had so carefully constructed was starting to crack. He refused to believe it. There had to be someone out there, someone his master had helped, who would be willing to stand with him against the Van Cess. But over the next few days, the story remained the same. Every door was shut in his face. He finally learned the reason. Asher Vance had gotten to all of them first. "Asher!" Leo screamed, sweeping everything off his desk. "You dog! Hiding in the shadows, turning my allies against me. Face me like a man." In his room, Manny listened to the sounds of destruction. The question echoed in his mind, louder than ever before. Is this man really worth dying for? Inside the sprawling Gow family estate in Greenwich, the war council was in session. Only the heavy hitters were present, the women who could fight. Too many cooks spoiled the broth, and right now, they needed a clean, simple recipe for revenge. "After a lot of sleepless nights, I've made significant progress," Raina Gow announced, tapping her nose with a hint of pride. "I've piggybacked onto every surveillance system within a 20-kilometer radius of Leo Flynn's current hideout. In other words, within that zone, I'm God." Anya Kuznetsov, idly flipping a combat knife, didn't even look up. "We ended on sight. Don't give him the chance to run." Zara Thorne and Cassie Lee nodded in grim agreement. Chloe Vance didn't need to say a word. She knew that if they let Leo slip through their fingers a third time, he would disappear completely. He'd go to ground, nursing his grudge. With his vindictive nature, it wouldn't matter if it took 5 years, 10, or even 20. One day, when they least expected it, he'd emerge from the shadows with a knife. The man operated with the subtlety of a mob enforcer. Raina flashed a grin and called her younger brother over. "Kevin, party favors." Kevin Gow, looking deeply uncomfortable to be in a room with this much distilled lethality, passed out a set of sleek, signal-enhanced wireless earpieces. One for everyone. He didn't leave after his task was done. Raina had strong-armed him into joining the Destroy Leo Flynn fan club. He didn't have a choice. After the stunt he and his sister had pulled on Leo, they were at the top of his hit list. Kevin knew he had to nip that particular thread in the bud. The thought of constantly looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life was terrifying. Imagine, years from now, he's a grown man, enjoying a private moment with a significant other, and suddenly Leo Flynn bursts through the door. Even if it didn't happen, the fear of it would be enough to give him nightmares. A dead man wanting revenge was one thing. You could burn some money, maybe hire a medium. But a living man? That was a whole different level of terror, a combination of psychological and physical torment. For a guy like Leo, morals and mercy were foreign concepts. Honestly, killing him wouldn't create a shred of guilt. It was a public service. Leo's been hitting dead ends for days. He's exhausted and desperate, Chloe analyzed, her voice calm and steady. He's been pushed to the edge. This is the perfect time to strike. Zara's eyes were cold as ice chips. He dies tonight. Raina thought for a moment. I'll map out every possible escape route. Zara, get your family's people on standby. Armed, covering all exits. This was the Thorne family's area of expertise. Zara, who had been simmering with a quiet rage for weeks, had no objections. They set the time for the operation, the dead of night. With the plan finalized, the women kicked Kevin and Victor Stone out of the room, telling them to go play in the sandbox until showtime. The two men were relegated to logistics, gathering the necessary supplies for the coming assault. But once they were gone, the women faced a more personal crisis. "Chloe," Raina began, her voice laced with disbelief. "Are you sure? You really can't hear your brother's thoughts anymore." Raina had been a hermit these past few days, dedicating every waking moment to her crusade against Leo, driven by the future prize, getting full access privileges from Scarlett Joe to go on dates with a certain married man. The thrill of hearing his thoughts, of teasing him. Just the thought of the years after Leo's demise made her weak in the knees. But now, that dream was shattering, as if someone had whispered in your dreams right in her ear. Chloe's brow furrowed, a sentiment mirrored on the faces of the other women. It was Cassie who spoke up, a note of undeniable disappointment in her voice. "It's gone. I tried to." Zara simply shook her head. A series of devastating blows landed on Raina's heart. The ability to hear Asher's thoughts was the only reason her androphobia had subsided. And just like that, poof, the magic was gone. Her happy place had evaporated. Then, a jolt went through her. An epiphany. The other women couldn't hear Asher's thoughts anymore, but that didn't mean no one could. What if she was the only one left? The true chosen one? Having consumed countless romance novels, Raina was intimately familiar with the trope. The bad boy billionaire and the one quirky girl who could tame him. The fake dating plot that turned into real, earth-shattering love. At the thought, a delighted tea escaped her lips. The giggle hung in the air for a moment before Cassie burst out laughing, looking directly at Raina. Raina was confused. "What are you laughing at?" "Oh, honey," Cassie said, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "That's a dangerous line of thought. I can tell you with absolute certainty. Even if you went to him now, you wouldn't hear a thing. If we're talking about who's special, we're all pretty special. There are no exceptions to this rule." Busted. A blush crept up Raina's cheeks, but she was a veteran of social embarrassment. If she couldn't have it in reality, who was to say she couldn't daydream? The women continued to discuss the mysterious disappearance of Asher's inner monologue, but no one could figure it out. The strange prohibition against speaking about it had vanished along with the ability itself. No one knew where it came from, and no one knew why it was gone. After getting a taste of such a sweet advantage, losing it was infuriating. Son of a bitch. All that excitement for nothing. A collective sense of dread settled over the room. Would Scarlett, now that the cheat code was gone, shut down the shared server? Reverting from a multiplayer experience to a single-player game would be a tragedy of epic proportions. "Don't do it, Scarlett. Please." Every pair of eyes in the room locked onto Scarlett Joe. As a woman, the she-devil knew exactly what they were thinking. After a moment of consideration, she finally spoke. "What I said before still stands," she declared, her voice leaving no room for argument. "As for whether you have what it takes to get what you want now, that's up to you." The mind reading was gone. There was no way to know what Asher was thinking anymore. If they wanted their candy, they would have to earn it on their own merits. Over the past few days, everything Leo Flynn had built in the shadows, every asset his mentor had left him, had been systematically dismantled. He was practically hyperventilating with rage. He made some inquiries. Every single loss traced back to the Vance family. That son of a bitch was leaving him no way out. Leo was furious, but he was also terrified. How did Asher Vance get his hands on his list of contacts? It made no sense. After Julian Nightmare, Kai's family assets were frozen. Julian had completely turned on him. With his fortune gone and seeing no future with Leo, he'd weighed his options and decided to flee the country. The states were too dangerous. One wrong move, and you were finished. Julian had learned a hard lesson about how brutal the competition was here. Back in the day, if he didn't like someone, he'd just kill them. Here it was complicated. Why the hell did I even come back? He fumed silently. "Asher Vance, you goddamn animal," Leo muttered, pacing the living room of the Marcos family home. "I need to regroup. When I come back, your entire family is going to pay. All your women. They were supposed to be mine, you bastard." The tide had turned against him. Staying here was just inviting further humiliation, and Leo's pride couldn't take another hit. Besides, living in the same city as his nemesis, knowing Asher was thriving while he was hiding like a rat, was poison to his soul. He was a guest in this house, and the Marcos family staff had been giving him dirty looks for days. After the family went bankrupt, they all looked at him like he was the ghost responsible for their ruin. It grated on his nerves. A great man cannot live under another's roof for long, he thought. Tomorrow, he would find his own place. He couldn't stand their judgmental stares for another day. Just then, Manny Marcos walked in. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes. He clearly hadn't been sleeping. Leo instantly masked his frustration, plastering on a warm, welcoming expression. "Manny, you're back. Come sit." Manny sank into a chair without a word. The silence was heavier than any accusation. Leo knew what he was thinking. His family was ruined. How could he possibly be in a good mood? If Manny had come back celebrating, he'd be nothing but an ungrateful brat. Leo offered a few words of comfort, but Manny remained stone-faced. Gritting his teeth, Leo decided to play his trump card, a sanitized version of his own story. "Years ago, I was forced to flee, alone, like a stray dog with nowhere to go." He began, his voice filled with dramatic gravitas. "I thought my life was over, but I refused to accept it. It's not that I was special, but I had to show the world that I would take back everything I had lost with my own 2 hands." He conveniently omitted the parts about his womanizing and cutthroat tactics. Stripped of those details, his story of starting from scratch sounded genuinely inspiring. Manny listened, captivated. Leo did have a certain talent and a healthy dose of luck, which was its own kind of skill. "Leo, what do we do next?" Manny asked, a flicker of his old fire returning to his eyes. He had followed Leo for years, living a life of luxury and excess overseas, to come back to the States only to be crushed and bankrupted. He couldn't swallow that bitterness. Leo was pleased. His pep talk had worked. "Here's the plan," he said, leaning in conspiratorially. "We go back overseas. We let that bastard Asher Vance grow his empire even bigger. And when we've rebuilt our forces, we'll come back with a vengeance. We'll crush him completely. We'll strip his women of everything." Manny thought it was a solid plan. The Marcos family still had some connections abroad, and with the Dragon's Den, they could get back on their feet. "Okay," Manny agreed. "Give me a week to clean up this mess. Then we go back to familiar territory and start over." Leo had once promised Manny half of the Dragon's Den, a promise Manny remembered with profound gratitude. Having successfully rallied his subordinate, Leo's mood improved considerably. It was lonely at the top. He needed someone who understood him. After chatting a while longer, Leo returned to his room. Aside from Manny, no one in the house gave him the time of day. They all looked at him as if he owed them $1,000,000. Insolent peasants, he thought. How dare they look at me, the Dragon King, that way? Then again, they didn't know his true identity. Ignorance was bliss. He found an excuse to let it go. As night fell, justice crept through the manicured lawns of the wealthy suburb. It might be late, but it would never be absent. "All units be advised. Target is confirmed on the 2nd floor, in the room by the window." Raina's voice was crisp and clear in their earpieces. 2 guards at the entrance, 3 more at the end of the left corridor. The rest are household staff, all civilians. The team was in position. To finally eliminate Leo, Zara had brought out the big guns. Anya, Victor Stone, and Kevin Gao were the vanguard. No matter how skilled in martial arts, nobody was immune to hot lead. Zara had equipped Anya with a sniper rifle, a submachine gun, and a sidearm, with plenty of ammo. Victor Stone was dual-wielding 2 compact SMGs. It had been a while since he'd held one, and he felt a thrill of grim satisfaction. He didn't know or care what Leo had done to piss off these women so badly. He just had a job to do. As for Kevin, he wouldn't even have to set foot inside. He had his new and improved nanodrones. The last failure against Asher had been a blow to his pride, but he'd worked tirelessly since then, making the drones bigger, stronger, and their payload more potent. This time, he wouldn't screw up. Zara and the others served as the backstop, waiting along Leo's likely escape routes. 20 of the Thorne family's best enforcers, each armed with a pistol, were deployed. Many of them had lost friends in Leo's previous night raid. When their boss's granddaughter told them they'd found the man responsible, they had eagerly volunteered, hungry for payback. At Raina's direction, they fanned out in small teams, positioned to reinforce each other at a moment's notice. A nested doll strategy of overwhelming force. Against more than 20 handguns, Leo Flynn had nowhere to run. Inside the mansion, Leo tossed and turned, unable to sleep. A heavy feeling pressed down on his chest. Since he'd built his empire, he'd never suffered such a humiliating defeat. He was supposed to have returned as a king, surrounded by beautiful women, with all his enemies crushed beneath his heel. He didn't know where it had all gone wrong. An inexplicable emptiness gnawed at him, as if something that was rightfully his had been severed from him. "Damn it, this has to be Asher Vance's fault," he cursed, getting out of bed. If he couldn't sleep, he wouldn't. He decided to go out for a late-night snack, then hit a bar to blow off some steam. Crash! The glass in his hand suddenly slipped, shattering on the floor. He He stared at the broken shards, dumbfounded. Impossible. How could I? He was a master of ancient martial arts, yet he couldn't even hold a simple glass? What a joke. Something was wrong. He lifted his head, his eyes darting around the room. Then his eyelid began to twitch. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. Shit. Something's happening, he hissed, quickly pulling on his clothes. He moved to the window but stayed pressed against the wall, out of sight, straining his ears. After a moment, he realized what was wrong. It was too quiet outside. Deathly quiet. The silence was a warning siren his instincts, honed on countless battlefields, could not ignore. Bzzz. 3 tiny mosquitoes landed nearby, their flight patterns unnatural. They were Kevin's nanodrones. Shit. All units, be advised, the Dragon King might be onto us, Kevin whispered into his mic, his heart pounding as he watched the drone feed. He'd just gotten them inside, and his target was already awake and on high alert. This was not going according to plan. Was he about to fail again? At that moment, Anya and Victor Stone stormed the mansion. The bodyguards were no match for them. They were unconscious before they knew what hit them. Their mission was to neutralize Leo and Manny, leaving the others unharmed. It's a trap. Leo's mind screamed. He didn't hesitate. Boom! He kicked open his door and bolted down the hall toward Manny's room. Kevin watched on his monitor, stunned. What the hell? I haven't even stung him yet. Checkpoint, this is Mole. The Dragon King knows something's wrong. You need to move now, Kevin urged frantically. Outside, the teams tensed. Anya and Victor burst deeper into the building. Anya's movements a blur of deadly grace even in full gear. Leo, meanwhile, was making as much noise as possible. The Marcos family had let go of most of their staff after the bankruptcy, but there were still about 20 people in the house, enough to create chaos and buy him time. The commotion woke most of them. Manny emerged from his room, looking utterly confused. Leo, what's going on? Get dressed. We have to get out of here now. Leo's expression was deadly serious. Manny didn't question him, but the other members of the Marcos household, already resentful of Leo, were furious. The old family butler stepped forward, his face a mask of contempt. What more do you want from us, Flynn? We're exhausted during the day, and now you disturb us at night. You're a menace. Leo's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Say that again. The butler, who had served the Marcos family for decades, was past the point of fear. He had watched this young man single-handedly destroy the family legacy. He refused to be intimidated. I said, before he could finish, Leo's hand shot out, clamping around his throat. Do you really think I'm some pushover? The butler's face turned purple. Manny, now dressed, rushed out of his room. Leo, what are you doing? Leo released his grip. For your sake, Manny, I'll let it slide. I'm trying to save his life, don't you understand? The butler collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. A surge of anger rose in Manny. He respected the old man. Leo had gone too far. But before he could speak, a terrified scream came from downstairs. Sir, run. They're here to kill you. The voice was cut off abruptly. Panic erupted on the second floor. Now do you believe me? Leo hissed. We have to go. Manny hesitated, but Leo pressed on. They're after us, not them. If you leave, they'll be safe. That was all it took. Manny agreed to run. They headed for a concealed exit as one of Kevin's nanodrones, which had been hiding in the chaos, managed to land unnoticed on the back of Manny's shirt. Checkpoint, this is Control. They're heading for the rear exit. Raina's voice crackled over the comms, relayed from the surveillance feeds. Outside, every operative snapped to high alert. Copy, Anya replied coolly. She launched herself from the second-floor balcony, landing silently on the soft lawn below. A high-powered rifle was strapped to her back, an SMG in her hands, and an array of knives at her belt. Anya would do whatever it took to end him here and now. Based on Chloe's warning, if Leo escaped tonight, their chances of catching him again would be virtually zero. Victor Stone followed close behind. They hadn't harmed any of the civilians, just knocked them out. And of course, they were masked. They weren't fools. Leo's overseas success with the Dragon's Den was built on the bodies of his rivals. He had countless enemies, a fact he and Manny understood all too well. The household staff, however, were just innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Damn it, we can't stay in this country, Leo grumbled as they ran. Manny wholeheartedly agreed. Back in the Dragon's Den, they would be safe. Leo, this way. It's faster, Manny pointed. They moved without stopping, adrenaline pumping through their veins. From his command center, Kevin was cursing them out. If his nanodrone flew off Manny's shirt now, he'd lose them. He couldn't risk it. It burrowed deeper into the fabric of Manny's clothes. Killing Manny wasn't the priority, stopping Leo was. So, Kevin held back from injecting the sedative. Just as they thought they'd shaken their pursuers, Leo let out a breath of relief. Son of a bitch, don't let me find out who. Rat-tat-tat-tat. Gunfire erupted behind them. From 150 yards out, the muzzle of Anya's SMG flashed in the darkness. The sound sent a jolt of panic through both men, and they dove behind the nearest cover. Who the hell are these people? Leo roared. Anyone using automatic weapons in the States had to have serious backing. His mind immediately jumped to the Thorne family. But what proof did they have? This was a straight-up assassination attempt. With Reyna acting as their eye in the sky, Anya and Victor were like gods, perfectly tracking Leo and Manny's every move. During one desperate dash for cover, a bullet tore through Manny's shoulder. Leo dragged him onward. They had been evading Anya for what felt like an eternity, but she was always right behind them. His eyelid was still twitching nonstop. Something was fundamentally wrong. There has to be a reason for this, Leo muttered, scanning their surroundings. Inside the Gao estate, Reyna gasped. Oh no! As if on cue, Leo's gaze shot upward and locked onto a security camera mounted on a nearby building. The truth hit him like a physical blow. It all made sense. But in that critical moment, Manny suddenly started convulsing and collapsed, breaking Leo's train of thought. What's wrong with you? Leo yelled, kneeling beside him. Manny was twitching uncontrollably, his teeth chattering as he tried to speak. A moment later, he passed out. Leo knew a single bullet shouldn't have knocked him out like this. He checked Manny's pulse. Asleep? This looks like poisoning, but the bullet couldn't have been. The heat from a fire round would sterilize any poison. This had to be something else, like a powerful anesthetic. Pulling out a case of silver needles, Leo worked quickly, inserting over 50 of them into acupressure points across Manny's body. It was a risky, draining procedure, but he needed his human shield back on its feet. Gah! Manny coughed up a spray of blood, his eyes snapping open, laced with red. His head was pounding, but he was conscious. You were poisoned, Leo explained, withdrawing the needles. I forced it out. Manny, still dazed, managed a grateful nod. Then, a memory surfaced. Damn it, it had to be the mole. Confused, Leo watched as Manny reached behind his own back and pulled out a small, crushed object. It was a flattened nanodrone. In all of New York, only one person had this kind of tech. The mole. The Gao family is dead. Leo's eyes burned with hatred. This was a blood feud now. Wary of another drone attack, Leo focused his internal energy, creating a protective field just off his skin. It was draining, but better than being taken down by another one of Kevin's dirty tricks. Here, take this, Leo said, forcing one of his last 2 blue combat stims into Manny's mouth. Manny swallowed it, and color instantly returned to his face. He felt his strength surge back. Just as he was about to thank Leo, the sound of gunfire echoed from behind them again. Leo, look out! Manny shoved Leo aside and hit the deck. A spray of bullets stitched the air where they had been standing. 2 more rounds slammed into Manny's arm, turning the sleeve of his shirt into a bloody rag. Leo rolled and came up firing, his mind racing. Leo, go! Manny yelled, his voice strained. I'll hold them off. Like hell you will. Leo roared back, a strange mix of fury and calculation in his eyes. This wasn't the time to abandon his most useful asset. Manny, however, didn't know he was just a pawn. Manny's heart swelled with gratitude. He'd chosen the right man to follow. Brother, less talking, more moving, Leo snapped, pulling Manny to his feet. They scrambled for cover, using the surrounding architecture to their advantage. They had just cleared the main property when a team of 3 Thorne family enforcers appeared, pistols drawn. Bang! 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 Flames erupted from their muzzles, forcing Leo and Manny back into a frantic retreat. But seeing them, Leo felt a surge of grim luck. He was glad he'd kept his human shield. Manny, we have to fight back. Leo's eyes went cold. The 2 men exchanged a look. Leo, my life is yours, Manny said with grim resolve. Tell me what to do. In the next moment, Manny grabbed a nearby metal trash can and charged out from cover, drawing a hail of bullets. For a split second, Leo was genuinely moved. If not for the cold reality that a king's rise is paved with the bones of his soldiers, he might have even tried to save Manny. But his eyelid was twitching more violently than ever. Today was not his day. Don't worry, Manny, Leo thought grimly. Down below, I'll send you plenty of money and women. And I swear on my life, the people who killed you will not live to see another year. I'll drag their families down to hell to keep you company. Unleashing the murderous aura he had suppressed for so long, Leo exploded from cover. Bang! Bang! Manny took a bullet to the leg and 2 more to his torso, but his distraction had worked. Whoever kills my brother will die by my hand. Leo bellowed, his body moving like a phantom. He launched himself forward with a burst of speed that consumed a massive amount of energy, but he had nothing left to lose. He's at the intersection of Bowlin Road. All units nearby, provide immediate support. Raina's urgent voice echoed in the enforcer's ears. More gunshots rang out, but this time they were accompanied by a series of loud explosions. A few miles away, on Asher's command, a team of his security guards had just ignited a truckload of commercial-grade fireworks. Chloe and her team are still a little reckless, Asher murmured, watching the sky bloom with vibrant color. This should help. The sudden cacophony woke up half the city. What the hell? Who's setting off fireworks at this hour? I thought fireworks were banned in the city. What a legend. Mommy, look. Pretty lights. Those are fireworks, sweetie. People used to set them off for holidays before. Well, before. Are you kidding me? I have to be up in 3 hours. Make it stop. I love you, Kevin Smith. Marry me, Jessica Jones. The fireworks drowned out the gunshots, turning a deadly firefight into just another bit of late-night New York chaos. Sir, what are your orders? One of Asher's men asked. Load the rest onto a pickup, Asher commanded. Keep moving, keep launching them until dawn. And don't get caught. Yes, sir. Asher wasn't worried about the fallout. A $1,000 bonus to everyone in the affected area tomorrow would smooth things over. Vance Corporation could afford it. He had more important things on his mind. Hey, you useless system, he thought. Are you going to say something? I'm about to personally execute your chosen one. No final words? No parting gifts? Silence. Asher let out a self-deprecating laugh, his expression hardening. Then don't you dare regret this. Even if you reset the whole damned world, I'll just kill this bastard all over again. He owed too much to the people in this life, his parents, his sister, Scarlett, all of them. This time, he wouldn't back down. Tonight, either the villain or the hero would die. There was no other way. Back in the firefight, Manny, at the cost of 3 more bullet wounds, had secured 3 pistols and 6 magazines. Suddenly, they were armed. His clothes were soaked in blood. Manny, you idiot, Leo yelled, his eyes red as he quickly used his silver needles to seal the worst of the wounds. It was a brutal, temporary fix that would cause long-term damage, but it was the only way to keep Manny alive. Manny's face was pale, but he managed a weak smile. What's idiotic, Leo? I got us 3 guns, didn't I? Leo thrust a pistol into Manny's hand. These bastards don't know who they're messing with. When we get out of this and return as kings, we'll burn their entire organization to the ground. The mole's family won't escape, either. We'll settle every score. Manny shook his head, refusing the gun. With his hands and body riddled with bullets, he knew he was done for. You take it, Leo. I'm useless now. Don't let me slow you down. Don't talk nonsense. I said take it. Leo's face was a mask of authority as he shoved the gun back into Manny's hand. You think I'm letting you get captured? He thought. If I take you alive, you'll sell me out. No loose ends. The Dragon's Den was full of traitors. Anya, Cassie, even the mole. In this world, you couldn't trust anyone but yourself. Manny, oblivious, was touched by the gesture. Meanwhile, the fireworks continued to boom, creating a constant, rolling thunder. Manny, let's go, Leo analyzed quickly. They were smart, but not smart enough. We can use the noise to escape. Head away from the fireworks. Manny nodded, his resolve hardened. With a gun, he could at least provide some covering fire. All units, be advised, they have 3 pistols. Target is moving west on City Line Avenue. Raina reported, her voice tense. The teams on the ground stiffened. An armed Leo was a different beast altogether. This was no longer a turkey shoot. It was a 50-50 fight to the death. Anya's eyes narrowed. Chloe's warnings echoed in her mind. If Leo escaped, he would become an unkillable menace. He had to die tonight. They ran for another mile, a gauntlet of death traps. Both men were gasping for air. Leo's wounds were superficial, but Manny was fading fast. The wounds Leo had crudely sealed were tearing open again from the exertion. He was only conscious because of the combat stim. Leo, I can't make it, Manny gasped, a grim smile on his face. He looked flushed, but it was the unnatural glow of a man burning through his last reserves. You have to go. Don't worry about me. Leo could see Manny's life force draining away. Shut up. I told you you're going to live. It's okay, Manny wheezed. Taking a few of them with me was enough. Damn it. How do they keep finding us? Leo growled, his eyes scanning everywhere. Suddenly it hit him. The mole. I'll kill you, he screamed, then raised his pistol and fired 3 shots into a security camera overhead. The screen in Raina's command center went black. All units, be advised, target has identified the surveillance system. He knows we're watching. Raina announced, her voice strained but calm. This was a high-end residential area. Of course, it was blanketed in cameras. She didn't believe Leo had enough bullets to shoot out every single one. She was right. After destroying a few more cameras, Leo stopped wasting ammunition. More pursuers were closing in. This time, Anya was taking a shortcut, and she had 5 more of Tsar's enforcers with her. "You cowardly bastards! You fight with tricks!" Leo roared, filled with a suffocating rage. He had been played from the very beginning. With his enemies closing in from both sides, Leo was trapped. He went on the offensive, his 2 pistols blazing at the enforcers in front while Manny covered his back, trying to hold off Anya. But a handgun was no match for an SMG. Anya's relentless fire pinned him down. Her speed was terrifying, and it reminded Manny of someone. "Leo, run! The assassin behind us. It's Nemesis!" Manny shrieked. The name jolted Leo. Oh no, of course. It all made sense now. The professional precision, the relentless pursuit. He stood no chance against her in a firefight. He had to break through the line in front of him. Just as Anya closed to within 50 yards, she tossed aside her smoking SMG, its barrel glowing red-hot. In one fluid motion, she unslung the high-powered rifle from her back, aiming as she ran, her hands perfectly steady. Manny, thinking she was reloading, fired a few wild shots to slow her down. Crack! A single, precise round from Anya's rifle tore through Manny's gun hand. His pistol clattered to the ground. Both his hands are now useless. Bleeding from a dozen wounds, he knew he wasn't getting out of this alive. Ahead, Leo had finally blasted a hole through the line of enforcers, killing 2 and wounding 3 more, but taking 3 more bullets himself. "Manny, let's go," he yelled over his shoulder. Manny forced a pained smile. "I can't. You go." The fireworks were too loud. Leo could only read his lips. He saw Manny's ruined hands, his resolute expression as he prepared to face Anya alone. For a split second, a single tear welled in Leo's eye. "Manny, take care. We'll be brothers again in the next life," he shouted, his voice thick with rage. "When I return, I swear Nemesis and the Mole will pay with their lives." This betrayal from Anya was unforgivable. He would tear her limb from limb. And Asher Vance. This was all his doing. Every single person associated with him would die. Manny laughed, a ragged, bloody sound. "Farewell, Leo. See you in hell." With his last ounce of strength, he rolled out into the open. "Nemesis, I am your opponent." Anya was closing fast. 40 yards. 30. 20. At 15 yards, she drew a knife from her belt and threw it with blinding speed. It flew faster than a bullet, embedding itself deep in Manny's forehead. He died instantly, his eyes open, a strange mix of defiance and relief on his face. Manny's sacrifice bought Leo precious seconds. He killed 2 more enforcers and broke through the encirclement, taking 2 more bullets in the process. That should be the last of them, he thought, hastily applying his needles to stop the bleeding. He popped his last combat stim into his mouth, ready to chew it if needed. "You treacherous bitch," he spat, thinking of Anya. "One day, I'll make you beg for death." He hadn't taken 10 steps before a familiar, burly figure emerged from an alleyway, leveling 2 SMGs at him. It was Victor Stone. "Daka daka daka daka, son of a bitch," Leo cursed, rolling behind cover as bullets chewed up the asphalt around him. He had his pistols, but it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. "I have to get out of the city," he thought desperately. "I have to survive." He was the Dragon King. He could endure humiliation. Revenge was a dish best served cold, even if it took decades. He imagined Asher and Scarlet with children, teenagers, young adults. He would wait until they had forgotten all about him, and then he would visit a special kind of pain upon them, making them watch their legacy die. The thought brought a ghastly smile to his face. He took a risk, sprinting from cover, and was rewarded with another bullet in his side and the sight of a dead Thorn enforcer on the ground. "Ha ha! Heaven has not abandoned me." He snatched the earpiece from the dead man's ear and jammed it into his own. Last seen at the intersection in Eastgate. All cameras in the area are down. Surround the block. He can't have gotten far. It was a woman's voice. A familiar one. Copy that. I'm taking a team there now. Leo froze. He knew that voice. It was the one who had scammed him, the hacker he'd never been able to identify. Red Rose. His lungs burned with fury. So this was her. This was the bitch who had played him for a fool. Even with the voice modulator, he recognized the cadence. No one had ever stolen from him and lived. A slow, murderous smile spread across his face. This was his chance. He knew their next move. He could predict their predictions. He could even disguise himself as one of them and walk right out. "Manny, just give me a little time," he vowed. I will send every last one of these bastards and their families down to hell to join you. Just then, he heard another voice over the comms, a voice he knew all too well. Asher Vance's. Don't make a sound, Asher was saying to someone. Leave the rest to me. A moment later, the comms crackled again, but it was Asher's voice this time, pretending to be one of the team. Simultaneously, miles away, Asher took the earpiece from Chloe's ear, put it on, and walked into the night. What do you mean you can't find him? He disappeared right there. Raina's voice was frayed with panic. Check again. Sorry, Ms. Gao. Nothing. Impossible. He has to be nearby. Keep looking. She couldn't lose him now, not after everything. If Leo escaped while she was running the eye in the sky, the failure would be hers alone. She expanded the search radius, her fingers flying across the keyboard in a blur. Her system was scanning for anyone matching Leo's description, prioritizing by similarity. Don't worry, Zara's calm voice cut through the comms. If he gets away, it's on all of us. He's probably still hiding somewhere close. Zara's right, Cassie added. The Dragon King's luck has run out. Sis, if you find him again, don't alert the ground teams, Kevin chimed in. Let me send in a few drones first. We'll paralyze him, then they can finish the job. Leo, hiding in the very area they were searching, listened to their every word, his face a mask of cold fury. The most dangerous place was indeed the safest. He had run out of ammo and ditched his guns. His only way out was to become one of them. He'd heard Raina's orders and knew their patrol routes. And since the Thorn enforcers were new recruits, they wouldn't know every friendly face. It was a long shot, but it was all he had. So, the Thorn family was in on it too, he whispered, a chilling smile spreading across his lips. And you, Mole, this is how you betray me. He finally understood. This wasn't some old rival from his mercenary days. This was a domestic operation, run by the women in Asher Vance's orbit. And Red Rose. She had to be the one giving the orders. The one named Raina Gao. The same last name as Kevin. The little 10-year-old bastard had been playing the long game from the very beginning. That kid was terrifying. He couldn't be allowed to live. But his deepest, most venomous hatred was reserved for Asher. These women were clearly acting on his orders. He should have killed Asher the moment he had the chance instead of playing games. For the humiliation I have suffered today, I will repay you 100-fold, he vowed. Once he confirmed Raina had redirected the search teams, he ripped the earpiece out, crushed it under his heel, and melted into the opposite direction. He was home free. No need to wait. You can pay me back right now. The voice came from the shadows. Leo froze, every muscle tensing. Despite the fireworks, he should have heard someone approach. His danger sense, his twitching eyelid, was silent. That meant either this man was no threat, or he was so deadly he didn't register as one. When the figure stepped into the light, Leo's world turned red. Asher Vance, you son of a bitch. Asher walked toward him, his expression as cold as a winter grave. Only one of us is walking away from this. I didn't call for backup. I like to handle my own business. No backup? Leo wanted to laugh. What about the 20 people with automatic weapons who just tried to kill me? You want a one-on-one? Just say so. But before he could speak, Asher charged. The distance between them closed in an instant. Seeing that Asher was unarmed, Leo's rage surged. He bit down on the combat stim he'd been holding in his mouth, and a wave of warmth and power flooded his system. He activated a secret technique, forcing his body back to its peak condition for a short time. You arrogant piece of shit, Leo snarled. You came at the perfect time. Asher threw a punch. Leo countered with a vicious kick aimed straight at Asher's groin. Thud. Asher twisted at the last second, taking the blow on his thigh. His iron mantle activated automatically. He wasn't about to bet his future happiness on a martial arts technique, no matter how perfect. Damn it, this trick again. Leo scowled, backing away. He remembered now. Asher was a tank, a defensive master with one devastating offensive move. A direct confrontation, especially while injured, was suicide. What's wrong? Scared. Asher pressed his attack, giving him no room to breathe. Leo parried and retreated, analyzing his opponent. He quickly realized Asher's Krav Maga was weaker, less potent than he remembered. It was a shadow of its former power. Whether Asher was holding back or had simply grown weaker, Leo didn't care. It was an opportunity. He launched a flurry of attacks. Thwack, crack, boom. The sounds of brutal impact echoed in the alley. Asher could afford to make mistakes. Leo could not. One slip, and a punch from Asher would land on one of his numerous bullet wounds. Asher's Krav Maga might have been downgraded to advanced, but a punch to an open wound was still excruciating. You cowardly bastard, Leo roared as Asher finally cornered him, raining blows down on his head. Mustering all his strength, Leo kicked Asher in the stomach, creating distance. Asher's strategy was simple and brutal. Ignore defense and just keep hitting. Cowardly. Asher's voice was laced with ice. You mean I'm supposed to just stand here and let you kill me? Is that how it works in your little hero story? He was done playing by the rules. He was done yielding to the protagonist and the will of this world. So what if killing Leo brought down the wrath of heaven? Let it. He would do it again. Go to hell. Leo screamed, grabbing a heavy, bolted-down trash can and ripping it from its moorings. He swung it like a club at Asher's head. Clang! Garbage flew everywhere. The blow would have killed a normal man. On Asher, it barely registered. The physical damage was minimal, but the insult was immense. Asher snatched the trash can from Leo's hands. You know, I've always believed in returning a gift. He swung it back. The can connected with Leo's side, and the world swam. He was covered in filth and consumed by a rage so pure it burned away all fear. You bastard! I'll kill you. No one had ever disrespected him like this. He was the Dragon King. You should watch your mouth, Asher said, his eyes promising death. It'll make for a more dignified corpse. They both threw a final, desperate punch at each other's head. Asher's vision swam for a second. It was the strongest punch Leo had ever thrown. But his iron mantle absorbed most of it. Leo was not so lucky. His head snapped back, stars exploded behind his eyes, and he flew several feet, landing in a heap. The world was a buzzing, blurry mess. He coughed up blood. Asher gave himself a few seconds to clear his head, then charged, aiming a powerful stomp at Leo's chest. He wanted to see what would happen when the protagonist of this world finally died. Leo, running on pure instinct, managed a clumsy roll, narrowly avoiding the blow. The pavement where his chest had been cracked under the force of Asher's foot. Knowing he was finished, Leo scrambled away. His wounds were bleeding freely again. He didn't want to die. He had to escape. But Asher was on him in an instant, relentless. Leo could only parry and retreat, his mind racing. So what if he can fight? He thought frantically. Even a bull ends up as steak. You might be tough, but what about your family? Your children? You can't be on guard every second of every day. He decided then and there. He would use the dragon's den to raise an army of disposable soldiers. He would harass Asher's family, his business, his life, until he broke him. Crack! A sickening snap echoed as Asher seized Leo's left arm and broke it. Vance, I'll fucking kill you. Leo screamed, his world dissolving into pure agony. How dull, Asher said, twisting the broken arm. A pain so profound it felt like his soul was being ripped apart shot through Leo's body. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, bulged with agony. But even now, all he could think about was survival. He activated his final trump card, a secret art that could reignite his life force from the brink of death. It was the ultimate way to play possum. The technique had one fatal flaw. A knife to the heart during the dead phase was still a knife to the heart. But he could use it twice a day. The first use would be to fake his own demise. He'd let Asher beat him to death, and then, 2 days later, the art would automatically revive him. Surely, even Asher would leave a corpse alone. Go to hell, Leo roared, a final, desperate burst of energy surging through him. He kicked Asher away and scrambled to his feet. Running was his only option. He would play dead, escape, and survive. He had been forced to use this technique only a handful of times in his life, and everyone who had pushed him that far was now dead, along with their entire bloodline. Just you wait, he muttered, sprinting away, ignoring the searing pain in his arm. Why get back? Your whole family is dead. The distance between them grew. Leo scrambled over obstacles like a wounded animal, fueled by sheer hatred. The sky was beginning to lighten in the east. A crazed, triumphant smile stretched across his blood-caked face. Just you wait, you piece of shit. I'll hold your head and make you watch while I defile every woman you've ever cared for. I'll destroy everything you love. I will tear down the sky itself if it tries to stop me. I, Leo Flynn, will not die like this. He was so focused on his escape, so lost in his vision of future vengeance, that he didn't see the figure step out of the alleyway directly in his path. She was stunningly beautiful, dressed in a black trench coat, her skin an almost unnaturally pale white against the vibrant red of her lipstick. A dangerous rose. Leaving me out of such an important event? That's not very nice, the woman said, a beautiful, chilling smile playing on her lips. She raised a pristine white pistol, her hand trembling with a mixture of excitement and nerves. By the time Leo registered the new threat, it was too late. Bang! The bullet tore through his thigh. His leg gave out, and he crumpled to the ground. Asher, closing in fast, saw Leo fall and didn't slow down. The woman's body trembled as Asher ran toward her. A jolt, like electricity, shot through her. Finally, I can finally do what I've always wanted. Serafina Hayes stroked her own cheek, her lips the color of fresh blood, her expression a terrifying blend of ecstasy and madness. Asher reached them, his mind racing. Serafina? Why is she here? And why is she chasing Leo? Leo, writhing on the ground, tried to scramble away. Bang! Serafina shot his other leg without even looking at him. "H," he screamed. Serafina, let me go, Leo pleaded through gritted teeth. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. She ignored him, her gaze fixed on Asher. Her red lips moved. You're here. Asher nodded, studying her. She had changed so much he almost didn't recognize her. You know how to use a gun? The question seemed to surprise her, but her expression was unreadable. Oh, this, she said, her voice deceptively casual. I've been taking lessons recently. The gun was a special order. She caressed the weapon, a feverish blush coloring her pale cheeks. Is this the first time you shot someone? Asher asked, a knot forming in his stomach. She hummed, her eyes filled with a strange, eager light. Does it bother you? Asher was completely baffled. Bother me? Why would it bother me? Because I ruined your plot. Broke your path home. Hey, she paused, her brow furrowing in confusion. Wait, I can say it out loud now. Asher felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Hold on. How do you know about that? Impossible. Why is it gone? She muttered to herself. What's gone? Serafina, answer my question. Why isn't it there? Serafina, what are you talking about? Tell me, why is it gone? Her playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold fury. She leveled the pistol at Asher. He was still a few yards away, too far to disarm her without significant risk. Besides, Chloe had told him how Serafina had helped them in the other timeline. He felt he owed her something. Ask me anything. I'll tell you the truth, he said, keeping one eye on her and the other on the twitching form of Leo Flynn. Annoyed by Leo's groaning, Serafina casually shot him twice in the back. He went silent. Fine, she said, her eyes boring into Asher's. Why are you so empty? Are you just pretending to be deep? That was the only explanation she could think of. In her mind, she had imagined hearing his thoughts, playing with him, making him suffer as she had. But he gave her nothing, not a single stray thought. Was her entrance not dramatic enough? Or had he truly mastered his mind? Or worse, did he just not care about her at all? The thought made her grip on the gun tighten. What are you talking about? My mind is a complete mess right now, Asher said, utterly bewildered. You're still lying. It's just like before. Is telling the truth really so hard for you? Her eyes reddened, her expression shifting rapidly between laughter and tears. It was a masterful performance of emotional chaos. Hey, don't say things that could be misunderstood, Asher warned. Bang. Ack. What the hell did I do? Leo shrieked from the ground as a bullet tore into his ass. I ask, you answer, Serafina commanded. We each get one question. Otherwise, it's not fair. Bang. Ow. Mother of hashtag at %&R. Are you addicted to this? Leo screamed as another bullet hit his other buttock. Do you have any objections? Serafina asked Asher coolly. Asher wisely shook his head. Good. My turn, she said, her gaze intense. When I shot him, did it hurt you at all? No, Asher answered honestly. Why would it? This woman was insane. He must have let something show on his face, because she immediately shot back. You think I'm sick, don't you? The question startled him. My turn, he said quickly, changing the subject. She seemed to accept it. Her ability to read him was purely based on deduction from his past thoughts. Without them, she was guessing. Why do you know about the plot, he asked. Why did you know I couldn't kill him? How did you get here? She just smiled, a chilling, beautiful smile. That's more than one question. Asher paused, then rephrased. What did you know to be here? Oh, that, she said, not bothering to hide it. I asked Ranagao about it a few days ago, and I noticed the fireworks were only in this area, so I drove over to take a look. Asher didn't believe a word of her ridiculously simple explanation. But what could he do? How have you been since you got married? She asked. Great, actually. Life's been pretty good. Bang, bang, bang. Damn you to hell. Leo groaned, his voice growing weaker. How did you know I was following a script? Asher pressed. Next question. Why do you want to kill Leo Flynn? Because I felt like it. Is that not a good enough reason? My turn. What are your future plans with Scarlet Joe? Oh, we were thinking of having a few kids. Bang, bang, Leo. You seem to have a big problem with me. Why? Serafina's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. The day you proposed to me at the Hayes Corporation. The ring you brought was plastic, wasn't it? A giant, blinking danger sign materialized over Asher's head. This was awkward. Asher rubbed the back of his neck, nodding sheepishly. Yeah, it was plastic. It was the confession she'd been waiting for. Bang! Bang! Serafina fired 2 more shots into Leo's unmoving form without even looking. Leo had passed out from blood loss and pain, but his suffering continued in his absence. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "No." Bang! 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 "Why have you changed so much, Serafina?" "Because of you." Objectively speaking, she pressed, ignoring his question. "Am I beautiful?" Asher's mind was still reeling from her last answer. "Because of me? What had he done?" Serafina's impatient glare snapped him back to the present. He took a proper look at her. "Yes, you're beautiful," he admitted. Then, because he couldn't help himself, he added, "But I still don't feel anything." Her brow twitched. She raised her pistol and fired 2 more rounds into Leo's shredded body. "I didn't ask for the commentary," she said coldly. "Don't add unnecessary details." Asher winced. The Dragon King was being turned into Swiss cheese. He felt a brief, fleeting moment of pity for his nemesis. "When did you start to become like this?" Asher asked, trying to understand. This was not the Serafina from the novel. Something had broken inside her. "Remember that night?" she asked, her eyes locking onto his. "The night I was drugged, and you saved me, and then you pushed me away." "Oh, so that was it." The poor woman's brain had short-circuited. He'd rejected her when she was at her most vulnerable. For the designated female lead of the story, having her grand, dramatic moment of surrender be met with a firm no must have shattered her worldview. "I remember," he said softly. "Oomph. I thought you'd forgotten." She punctuated the statement by pulling the trigger again. Click, click, click. She was out of bullets. "How annoying," she muttered, smoothly ejecting the empty magazine and slapping in a fresh one. "Why are you so obsessed with me?" she asked, her tone shifting to a sly, knowing one. Before Asher could answer, she cut him off. "And don't treat me like an idiot. I grew up in the business world. I'm fluent in 4 languages and skilled in the arts. I graduated top of my class from a top 3 global university with a master's degree. In the years I ran my father's company, I doubled its size." She sounded like a child, listing her accomplishments for an unimpressed parent. "I know you're not an idiot," Asher said, choosing his words carefully. "My hostility toward you, it was based on a misunderstanding. A big one, but it's been cleared up now." He had believed she, along with the other women, had betrayed his family and sided with Leo in the previous timeline. But Chloe had set the record straight. What misunderstanding? Serafina's heart began to pound. She felt she was on the verge of the truth. Asher gestured with his head toward the bloody mess on the ground. "I suspected you and him had a thing." The air went still. Serafina's expression turned glacial. She raised her pistol and emptied the entire magazine into Leo's body. Bang, 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 click, click, click. "Whoa, she's completely lost it," Asher whispered to himself. Her hypersensitive ears caught it. "You think this is me losing it?" But she didn't say anything. Instead, she was startled by a sudden, pained groan from the ground. Leo's body twitched. He was back. "What the hell does that have to do with me?" he rasped, his voice a broken, agonizing sound. "Can you two just talk without using me for target practice? I think I'm done for her. For the love of God, just give me a quick end." He had been playing dead, hoping she'd run out of steam. He hadn't counted on her getting even crazier. The sheer agony had shocked his system back into a final, fleeting moment of consciousness. Serafina, startled by the corpse talking, quickly reloaded. Leo's plea for death went unanswered. He managed to stay conscious for another few seconds before his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed again. This time, it felt final. "Oomph," Serafina scoffed. She wasn't taking any chances. Bang, bang, bang. She fired 3 more shots. "That's for playing dead. That's for startling me. And that's for what?" She looked at Asher, genuinely perplexed. Asher shrugged. "How should I know?" Her face hardened at his dismissive tone, but she found her answer. "That's for looking so smug." Asher couldn't help but laugh. Unbeknownst to either of them, Leo's right middle finger twitched one last time before going still forever. The sky was now a soft gray. Dawn was breaking. "He's gone. He really got away? Damn it." Raina's panicked voice came over a phone Asher had just pulled out. He'd called her check-in. She had expanded her search to a 50-kilometer radius and found nothing. She was blaming herself. Then a new voice joined the call. It was Chloe. "Leo's not getting away," she said calmly. "My brother went after him personally." A wave of panic washed over the women on the line. Asher was facing him alone. What if Leo had a gun? Enough. Everyone be quiet. Anya's voice cut through the chaos like a whip. Reina, tell me the locations of the last 9 cameras Leo destroyed. Anya didn't explain. No one argued. Reina quickly rattled off the coordinates. The rest of you, pair up and search those areas. Now, the line went silent. Back at the scene, the impromptu game of truth or dare was winding down. Serafina had fired all her bullets. Her manic energy had faded, replaced by an empty, chilling laughter. She seemed broken, like a doll abandoned by the world. I made this mess, Asher thought with a sigh. I guess I have to fix it. He walked toward her. What are you doing? She asked, her voice hollow. He didn't answer. He just pulled her into a hug. For a moment, she was stiff, then she began to struggle, pounding on his chest with her fists. What is this? Get off me. Let go or I'll kill you. He held on, letting her vent her pain and confusion. Chloe had told him how the other women, sensing his dislike for Serafina, had ostracized her. She had been truly alone. Finally, exhausted, she stopped fighting, her face still wearing that broken smile. What good is a hug? Anyone can do that. If you got the guts, kiss me. She taunted, not believing for a second he would do it. Asher hesitated. Then he thought, the Dragon King is dead. The world might reset at any moment. What's there to lose? He leaned in and kissed her. Her body went rigid with shock. Then, she melted into him, her own movements clumsy and inexperienced, but filled with a desperate, all-consuming passion. The broken smile on her lips vanished, and the frantic, wild look in her eyes softened, clearing like a morning mist. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the world fell away, leaving only the two of them. When they finally broke apart, he saw the normal Serafina looking back at him. Her face beat red, her expression a mix of shame and fury. What? What was that for? She stammered. Asher grinned. Giving you what you wanted. What I want it. Be quiet. You're dead. Say one more word and I'll be very not nice to you. Oh, how not nice. She glanced around, saw a towering hotel in the distance, and her courage returned. Let's get a room. Asher. The sheer audacity of it left him speechless. You're not going to back out now, are you? Serafina asked, a hint of her old fire returning, though now it was tinged with vulnerability instead of madness. A man has to take responsibility. Asher's mouth twitched. Responsibility? He didn't even know if the sun would rise for him tomorrow, or if he'd wake up back at the beginning of this whole mess. Who said I wasn't? He replied, his voice taking on a bold, devil-may-care tone. I kissed you. That makes you my woman. One day, years in the future, Asher Vance would stare at his ceiling and deeply, profoundly regret that sentence. The system-granted stamina was great, but the constant, round-the-clock overtime was enough to wear down even a man of steel. Serafina's face flushed a deeper crimson. You're impossible, she sputtered. Whether I am or not doesn't matter, he teased, finding that beneath the layers of trauma and plot-induced insanity, she was actually cute. It took her a moment to catch his double entendre. Don't just talk about it, she shot back, her pride stung. Let's go find out. Asher was taken aback. This woman was something else. Shouldn't we deal with that first? He asked, pointing a thumb at the bullet-riddled corpse on the ground. Serafina blinked, as if noticing it for the first time. Oh, right. You have a point. Asher sighed. A fool is still a fool, I guess. Are you thinking I'm a fool? No, of course not. Never crossed my mind, he denied instantly, standing ramrod straight. She gave a dissatisfied huff. He ignored her and was about to call for a cleanup crew when footsteps approached. It was Anya, rifle in hand, moving with the silent grace of a predator. She gave Asher a quick once-over to confirm he was unharmed. Then her eyes fell on Leo's body. Without a word, she raised her rifle and put a final, definitive bullet through Leo's skull. Bang! Brains and blood spattered onto the pavement. Chloe's orders, she thought. No half measures. Make sure the head is gone. Asher and Serafina both took an involuntary step back, huddling closer together. Is she going to kill us too? Serafina whispered, her voice trembling. Don't be ridiculous. Asher stammered, trying to project a confidence he absolutely did not feel. Anya wasn't done. She stared at the corpse for a long moment, then raised the rifle again. Bang! Another round tore through the already ruined head. Asher and Serafina took another synchronized step back. Their scalps prickled. Okay, maybe Serafina had a point. Just as they were about to make a quiet, tactical retreat, Anya's voice stopped them cold. Where are you going? Serafina shot Asher a desperate, pleading look. He took a deep breath and smiled. Nowhere. Just remembered I have an urgent meeting at the office. Anya's gaze shifted to Serafina. You have a meeting too? Serafina nodded frantically. Yes. Very urgent. Oh, Anya didn't press. She took off her mask, revealing her stunning, stoic face. She walked over to Asher, who instinctively tightened his arm around the trembling Serafina. Was I interrupting? Anya asked, her expression unreadable. Asher's brain went into overdrive. He smiled, releasing Serafina and extending his other arm toward Anya. No, you're right on time. Serafina looked on, dumbfounded, as Anya dropped her rifle and stepped into Asher's embrace. There they stood, one man holding two breathtakingly beautiful women, a portrait of surreal domesticity amidst the gore. The quiet moment was broken when Anya reached up, took Asher's face in her hands, and kissed him, a passionate assertion of her place. It was her greeting ritual, and it had been too long. Asher, knowing the drill, didn't resist. Besides, Anya was an expert. Serafina's first kiss had been a clumsy, toothy disaster. This was art. Serafina just stared, her mind a blank slate. Who am I? Where am I? What is happening? After a long moment, Asher gently pulled away. Not now, he whispered, looking into Anya's eyes. Help me clean this up first. After that, you can have as much time as you want. We can even take the next step. Okay, Anya. It was a compromise, an offer. She considered it, then gave a single, sharp nod. Okay. Asher breathed a sigh of relief. Anya took out her phone to make a call. He needed to leave and handle his own end of the cleanup. But as he turned to go, he found Serafina shadowing him. You should go home, he said gently. Her expression immediately hardened. So all that was just to humor me? I know I'm married, he stated simply. I don't care. My wife. Your wife cares even less. You won't regret this. Stop stalling. Get in the car. He opened the passenger door for her. Serafina's heart hammered her chest. Her intuition told her this was it. Her one chance. Ever since he had killed Leo, Asher seemed free, like a man who had shed a great burden. She had to seize this moment. She got in. Serafina had read him right. With the system silent and Leo Flynn dead, Asher felt a profound sense of liberation. If he woke up tomorrow and it was all a dream, so be it. He'd just kill Leo again. He was no longer a pawn. He was done with regrets. And the woman sitting next to him, the original heroine of the story, was beautiful, alluring, and offering herself to him. The Dragon King was dead and gone. What excuse did he have left? In a five-star hotel's presidential suite, the lights flickered on. The room was palatial, a monument to wealth. As Asher went to take a shower, washing away the blood and grime of the night, Serafina hesitated by the door. Then, with a deep breath, she followed him in. You can wait outside, he said, his back to her, or you can go home. I'll call you. Who said I was leaving? She replied, her voice shaking slightly as she let her clothes fall to the floor. Asher's resolve crumbled. The board was cleared. The game was over. Why not enjoy a final, glorious celebration before the world ended? He pulled her into the oversized bathtub. Hours passed. Meanwhile, Captain Frank Nolan's investigation into the gangland shootout concluded swiftly. The primary targets, Leo Flynn and Manny Marcos, were wanted criminals with extensive records. The official story was that they were eliminated by rival factions. Case closed. Chloe Vance arrived at the scene long after Asher and Serafina had left. Anya was standing guard over the body. Anya, Chloe called out, her voice sweet. She trotted over to the corpse, a grotesque pile of flesh and bone. The close-range rifle shots had been devastating. To be safe, she pulled out her own pistol and emptied the magazine into what was left of Leo's torso. I don't have a thing for desecrating corpses, she explained to a nonplussed Anya. But you know this guy. Better safe than sorry. Anya nodded. It was sound logic. Soon after, Zara Thorne arrived with her cleanup crew. She took one look at the body, then calmly requested a pistol for one of her men. Bang. That's for the brothers you killed. Bang. That's for deceiving my grandfather. Bang. That's for manipulating my father. Bang. And that's for being a duplicitous, arrogant pig. She emptied a full magazine, then another. When she ran out of reasons, Chloe just smiled. Does taking out the trash need a reason? That was all the encouragement Zara's men needed. One by one, they stepped forward to pay their respects to their fallen comrade. The alley erupted in a deafening barrage of gunfire, a final, violent eulogy for the man who had wronged them. By the time they were done, there was almost nothing left to clean up. Miles away, Reina and Kevin Gao began their own work, meticulously scrubbing every byte of data related to the night's events from every server, traffic camera, and digital device in a 50-kilometer radius. It was a tedious job, but for them, it was just another Tuesday. The Dragon King was dead. The plot was broken. For the first time in a long time, the future was unwritten. With the last loose end tied up, the fallout from Leo Flynn's spectacular implosion continued to ripple through New York. That afternoon, Captain Kate Young received another anonymous data dump. If Leo Flynn was the shadowy puppet master behind his network of criminal enterprises, then the Marcos family was the accomplice that held the strings. The evidence was damning and meticulously detailed. Manny Marcos had been Leo's right-hand man, the loyal dog to his master. But more than that, financial records, laundered through a dozen shell corporations, showed a clear trail of seed money flowing directly from the Marcos family accounts into the formation of Leo's various syndicates. The reversal was stunning, the kind of plot twist you'd roll your eyes at in a cheap thriller. The Marcos family was a solid second-tier dynasty in New York. They were the kind of old money that could weather generations of reckless spending without ever seeing the bottom of the account. They were comfortable, secure, and held a respectable position within the city's elite. After all, not everyone could be a Vance, an untouchable force of nature, a titan of industry. In this world, a man with a $10 million net worth could crush an ordinary person under the weight of his influence. But once you hit the 9 or 10-figure mark, money stopped being the only metric. It became about legacy, about the foundation your family had built over generations. That was the game not just in New York but across the country. There were plenty of wealthy families, titans in their respective fields, who clawed their way into the third tier. But even they were nothing in the face of the second-tier dynasties. And the second-tier families, numerous as they were, couldn't hope to challenge one of the first families, even if they banded together. Why would the efforts of 3, even 10 generations of meticulous planning and brutal consolidation lose to some upstart who got lucky in the market? It was a joke. The Marcos family had it all: timing, luck, and generations of hard work. And now, because their heir, Manny, had backed the wrong horse, the entire dynasty was gone. Wiped off the map. Of course, it was possible the family had been a willing participant all along. The internet was a ravenous, howling mob. The court of public opinion, which just yesterday had been lamenting the fall of a respected family, had turned on a dime. Good riddance. Burn the whole damn family to the ground. Yesterday, I was actually defending them, and it turns out they were preying on their own people. Scum. OMG, I feel so bad for doubting Asher Vance. The Vance family did the right thing. That's it, I'm going on a shopping spree. Vance Core products only. Don't anyone try to stop me. Whoa, a real-life billionaire in the comments. Sir, please adopt me. Emoticon, sourire, let's make a group. +1 for the adoption train. Bags and belts are nothing. If you're a real fan, buy a Vance-built private jet or a luxury yacht. Dude, with a mouth like that, you should be a salesman. Are you blind? That's William Wong's son. His family actually did buy one of their custom yachts. Meanwhile, at the Vance Medical Center in Midtown Manhattan. Congratulations, Ms. Joe, the chief of obstetrics, a woman named Dr. Matthews, said, holding a report with a barely contained, ecstatic grin. You're pregnant. As for the nausea and discomfort you've been feeling, that's all perfectly normal. Normally, a routine confirmation like this would be handled by a resident, but the patient was Scarlett Joe. An opportunity like this was a once-in-a-career stroke of luck. Dr. Matthews was practically giddy. A connection to someone of this stature was the stuff of dreams. Let me see, Scarlett said, trying to maintain her usual cool, collected demeanor. But the slight tremor in her hand and the irrepressible glow on her face gave her away. Dr. Matthews respectfully handed over the report. Scarlett read every line, absorbing every detail. She'd been suspecting it for days, ever since the first wave of morning sickness. As an adult, she knew what the signs meant, but she hadn't dared to be certain, terrified of getting her hopes up only to be disappointed. It was her first time, after all. A little doubt was normal. But now it was confirmed. It was real. A wave of profound relief washed over her. A great weight lifted from her shoulders. She had been worried that Asher would be lured away by the other women circling him. Now that his plot armor was gone, things were unpredictable. His ability to hear their thoughts was gone, too. But this changed everything. Even if those other heroines made their move, they couldn't catch up to her now. Time, if nothing else, was on her side. Thank you, Scarlett said, a genuine, radiant smile spreading across her face. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to the doctor. Here's my card. Not just anyone received a card from Scarlett Joe. Technically, even the hospital CEO wouldn't have been worthy. But Scarlett was in such a good mood, she felt generous. Dr. Matthews accepted it as if it were a holy relic, her face a mask of shocked delight. She quickly launched into a list of recommendations. dietary advice for a healthy baby, foods to eat to ensure the child would be beautiful, intelligent. It was all nonsense, of course. With Scarlett's looks and Asher's sharp features, their child was destined to be gorgeous unless some catastrophic genetic mutation occurred. The world was about to be graced with another heartbreaker. BZZ, Scarlett's phone vibrated. As she answered it, Dr. Matthews wisely clammed her mouth shut and, with a polite gesture, excused herself to give Scarlett privacy. It wasn't strictly necessary, but it showed she was considerate, respectful, and knew how to play the game. An opportunity to prove her worth. The doctor thought hospital directors come and go, but a connection to Scarlett Jo is forever. Hello, what is it? Scarlett's tone was cheerful. She listened as her bodyguard explained the situation on the other end. I see. So my dear decided to set off some fireworks and disturb the neighbors, she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. All right, here's what we'll do. Everyone in the affected area, man, woman, and child, gets a $1,500 gift card as an apology. Send it from the Vance Community Outreach Fund. The number of people affected couldn't have been more than a few thousand. They were fireworks, not artillery shells. But a few $1,000,000 was nothing to Scarlett. Not today. She was feeling magnanimous. Let the whole city celebrate with her. Kate Young got the news from Chloe Vance herself. Asher's sister had called to confirm it. Leo Flynn was dead. Kate's only response was a grimly satisfied, good. The litany of crimes laid at Leo's feet meant he deserved to die 100 times over. When she'd first declared her intent to kill him, she'd felt a pang of doubt, a feeling that she might be crossing a line. But now, with the full, sordid truth of his operations exposed, she felt that death was too easy for the bastard. He should have been drawn and quartered. This time, Kate didn't report the full truth to her superiors. The villain had received his justice. Whether his body was ever found was irrelevant. Justice was with her. May the light bless them all. She passed the news on to her sister, Jessica. Jessica's reaction was a mix of elation and fury. She slammed her hand on her desk. Why didn't you tell me something this important sooner? She was particularly incensed to learn Asher had been involved. A cold sweat broke out on her skin until Kate assured her he was unharmed and the threat was neutralized. Only then did she relax. Even though Asher was married, Jessica's concern for him went far beyond friendship. It was a feeling she'd nurtured for years, one he'd never given her an opportunity to act on. She pulled the business plan he had personally drafted for her out of a drawer, clutching the papers tightly. You think it's fun to string me along? She murmured to the empty room. Giving me hope, then expecting me to stand on the sidelines? That's not how this works. Her eyes narrowed, a storm of calculations brewing behind them. Across town, in a 5-star hotel suite, Serafina Hayes stood unsteadily before the bathroom mirror, rinsing her mouth for the 3rd time. She was beginning to understand Scarlett's logic. If their roles were reversed, if she were Asher's wife, she would probably also allow him to seek out other women. Not because she didn't love him, but because she did. Love meant ensuring his needs were met, even the most basic ones. If you couldn't do that, what right did you have to claim you loved him? Asher emerged from the bedroom, fully dressed. He had things to deal with, the remnants of the dragon's den for one, and the looming threat of Leo's mentor. He'd only ever read about this mysterious master in the novel, a beautiful and enigmatic woman with a bizarre, unwritten rule. Whoever killed her disciple would become her new one. The only other option was death. You either became her student or you died. Asher's memory of it was hazy. The master's role in the book had been minimal, and since Leo was the protagonist, he was never supposed to die anyway. But now, with Leo gone, the rules had changed. From the master's perspective, a disciple who could be killed was weak, proving the existence of superior talent. She wasn't seeking a student. She was seeking a successor, someone to inherit her martial traditions and perhaps even help her break through to some higher, unknown plane of power. Not that any of that mattered to Asher right now. Do you want to go out for dinner? Or I can have something sent up, he asked, a gentle smile on his face. Whatever the future held, Serafina was his woman now, and Asher always took care of his women. Do you find it amusing to see me stumbling around like this? Serafina shot back, a light huff escaping her. She wasn't regretting what had happened. She was annoyed because she was certain Asher had lied to her. Scarlett Jo, the fiercely competitive, brilliant businesswoman, willingly sharing her husband? Impossible. The thought was infuriating. She went back to rinsing her mouth. Asher blinked, then chuckled. He had been thoughtless. All right, I'll have someone come up to change the sheets and bring us some food. Eat with me, she said suddenly. It was a simple request. He agreed. The system's upgrades meant he didn't feel tired, but it was dinner time, and a man had to eat. Serafina's delicate features were flushed. The last vestiges of her girlish innocence had been washed away, replaced by the sensual maturity of a woman. "You know, that pill?" she began, biting her lip, her voice barely a whisper. I don't think I'm ready for a child just yet." It wasn't that she didn't want one. She desperately did. But what would that child be? The question was fueled by a sharp pang of jealousy. As much as she hated losing to Scarlett, she didn't want to be the one to disrupt their life together. Scarlett had priority. She had to. Years later, when news of her little niece's arrival reached her, Serafina would be consumed by regret. Why had she pretended to be so magnanimous? Why hadn't she just admitted she was a woman who wanted a child of her own to love? Asher nodded. He hadn't been planning on it either. He wouldn't have brought it up, but her raising the subject was a relief. Even if he woke up tomorrow with the plot reset, he didn't want to have a child with anyone but Scarlett. It wouldn't be fair to the she-devil, and it certainly wouldn't be fair to the other woman or the child. Of course. Wait here. He smiled. He could have a courier fetch it, but seeing the blush deepen on her cheeks, he sighed. He'd go himself. There were plenty of pharmacies nearby. He could order their dinner on the way back down. With that, Asher left the room. The service at a five-star hotel was nothing if not prompt and thorough. For the prices they charged, every request was met with a smile. The clientele was exclusively the rich and the powerful, and no one in their right mind turns away money. "Here's what you asked for," Asher said, handing Serafina a small paper bag. "Just follow the instructions on the box." Her blush had faded, though a faint pinkness lingered on her cheeks. They'd seen everything there was to see of each other. There was no point in being shy now. She took the box out of the bag, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Plan B," she murmured, reading the name. She'd read online that you were supposed to take it as soon as possible. Missed the window, and not even a miracle could help. Asher had assumed she'd want to eat first, but he didn't object, simply pouring her a glass of water. "Thanks," she said, taking the glass and swallowing the pill. Once she was done, they began to eat. The suite fell silent, the only sound the soft clinking of silverware against porcelain. The air between them was thick with an undefined tension. They weren't dating. They certainly weren't lovers. And they were far beyond being just friends. What exactly were they? Asher focused intently on his food, his expression calm. Inside, however, he was panicking. He'd spent so much time despising this woman, and now the awkwardness was suffocating. Damn his weakness for a pretty face. He didn't regret what he'd done, and he wouldn't shirk his responsibility. He'd deal with the consequences as they came. Besides, with the protagonist dead, who knew when, or if, the plot would ever rear its ugly head again? The hotel staff had already been through, clearing the debris of their afternoon and replacing the linens. "You should rest here," Asher said after they finished eating, preparing to leave. "Call the front desk if you need anything, or you can call me." Serafina gave him a strange look. Asher touched his face. "Is there something on my face?" She shook her head. "No." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice dangerously low, "have you forgotten what you did?" "What did I do?" Asher asked, genuinely confused. Her expression hardened. She lifted her bare foot and stomped down hard on his, the gesture more petulant than angry. "How am I supposed to call you?" she demanded, her voice rising with frustration. "You blocked my number." If anyone who knew the poised and elegant Serafina Hayes had seen her now, looking like a scorned lover, they would have done a double take. Asher's eye twitched. "Oh, right. This was incredibly awkward, telling her to call him right after remembering he'd blocked her. A misunderstanding. Just a misunderstanding. He mumbled, fumbling for his phone. He quickly pulled her up in his contacts, removed her from the block list, and sent a new friend request. "Change my contact name to Baby Girl," she suddenly demanded. Asher's heart skipped a beat. Was she serious? He froze, his thumb hovering over the screen. Seeing his deer-in-the-headlights expression, Serafina burst out laughing. "I'm kidding. Look how nervous you are." Holy hell, the dumb woman is showing signs of intelligence, Asher thought. It's a miracle. He had to admit, she'd gotten him. But if she had insisted, he probably would have done it. "How about a different request, then?" she said, her eyes sparkling like a teenager in the throes of first love. "Kiss me." Asher didn't move, just watched her with a faint smile. This kiss was her way of putting a final punctuation mark on the day's events. His hesitation annoyed her. After everything they'd just done, he couldn't grant her this one small thing? She wasn't asking for a title, for anything permanent. "Do you find me disgusting?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "Not all." Asher chuckled. He leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Serafina's face instantly went crimson. She stumbled back a step, her expression a mixture of terror and mortification, shaking her head so fast it was a blur. Never mind. Never mind. You should go. Get out now. I don't want to see you again. Oomph. Don't you have any self-awareness? Are you trying to kill me? By the end, she was practically shouting. Her flustered state was so adorable it made Asher laugh out loud. You want to play games with me? You're still an amateur. Though he had to admit, she was a very tender amateur. Seeing him still standing there, a smirk playing on his lips, she huffed and started pushing him toward the door. Go on, get out of here. Don't disturb my rest. Asher let her push him, but just as they reached the doorway, he suddenly spun around and stole a quick, firm kiss. Serafina froze, completely blindsided. She was a flurry of panic and pleasure, her eyes darting around nervously, half expecting him to throw sportsmanship out the window and take things further. But he didn't. He pulled back, leaving her stunned. As he was about to leave, he felt another wave of mischief. He pointed his own collarbone. This won't fade for a few days, he said lightly. You might want to be careful. It's pretty easy to spot. She blinked, then followed his finger. A constellation of dark bruises, hickeys, marred the pale skin of her clavicle. Her face flushed with a new wave of anger and embarrassment. You bastard! And whose fault is that? She shrieked, raising a hand to hit him. But Asher was already gone, slipping out the door and leaving her to fume in the empty suite. Once outside the hotel, Asher called Anya. He needed her to contact Raina Gao for him. Thankfully, Anya had her number. It saved him the trouble of having to go through Chloe or Zara, both of whom seemed to have designs on him. One incident like today was enough. Any more, and he wasn't sure he could handle the mental gymnastics. Hello. Raina's voice came through, laced with confusion. The number was unfamiliar. Anya hadn't given her a heads up. A spam call? She wondered. Raina loved messing with spam callers. It was a professional hazard. But her system was designed to filter them out. This number, a private one known by only a handful of people, had to be a referral from a trusted contact. A moment later, the voice on the other end confirmed it was someone she knew. Someone she knew very well. It was both expected and a complete shock. It's me, Asher Vance. Asher. Raina's voice cracked with excitement. Asher took a deep breath and got straight to the point. Raina, I need a favor. I'll pay you 3 times the market rate for your services. He needed her help, so a polite, professional approach was best. Raina's heart hammered against her ribs. Forget the payment, she stammered. Just tell me what you need. If I can do it, I won't hesitate. She was practically beaming through the phone. Asher didn't waste any time. I need you to dismantle the Dragon's Den. The plan was simple. Destroy Leo Flynn's international operations. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. In his previous life, Asher had been forced to clean up some of Leo's messes to keep the plot on track, which gave him intimate knowledge of the Dragon's Den's inner workings and dirty secrets. Rival PMCs and mercenary outfits would jump at the chance to see the den fall. They were vultures circling a dying beast, eager to carve up the territory and contracts that Leo's rising power had stolen from them. With the Dragon King dead and his top 10 commanders decimated, the den was vulnerable. Asher fed Raina a steady stream of internal data, outlining exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. Once their rivals learned of the power vacuum, they would descend like a pack of rabid dogs. That was one part of the plan. The other was Julian Nightmare Kai. Asher hadn't forgotten that Julian had been the one to orchestrate the smear campaign against Vance Corporation. It was time to settle that score. Asher possessed enough information to utterly ruin Julian, to turn him from a feared enforcer into a hunted pariah overnight. With Raina, the queen of hackers, releasing the information, Julian wouldn't be able to show his face anywhere in the world. His history as a sadistic serial killer alone would be enough to make anyone with a shred of decency recoil in horror. As Raina listened to Asher's plan, her eyes, dark and intelligent, began to sparkle. Asher, she began, a hint of mischief in her voice, I'd like to propose a small amendment. Since Leo is dead, and the Dragon's Den is just sitting there, I'd like to use it. She rubbed her hands together, her tone almost shy. Asher paused, then let out a laugh. Seeing her bewildered expression through the phone, he said, You mean you want to absorb its assets, don't you? He'd seen right through her. She didn't bother denying it. Yes. Come on, big brother, do me a solid, she wheedled. A dead camel is still bigger than a horse. Without Leo Flynn, the Dragon's Den was a shell, but its accumulated wealth, infrastructure, and contacts were very real. Raina wasn't interested in the power. She just wanted the money. It was a small request, really. Fine, Asher said with a smile. It's all yours. I'll provide whatever financial and logistical support you need. Just tell me what you want. Money, manpower, it's yours for the asking. He truly had no interest in the Dragon's Den. Taking it over himself would be a loud, messy affair that would inevitably attract the attention of Leo's mysterious master. Let her come. The chaos he was unleashing was big enough that any interested party would eventually trace it back to him. He was done caring. For all he knew, the dam system would reset the world for a third time before she ever found him. He had too much pent-up frustration to let that stop him. He had been forced to play the villain, endured humiliation, and still hadn't gotten to go home. Killing Leo had been the first real release, and he was going to see this through. Hee, you promised. No takebacks. Raina chirped. I have no use for an organization like that. Asher replied coolly. Oh, right. Spoken like a true tycoon. Asher's face darkened. All right, that's enough flattery. Raina stuck her tongue out playfully on her end of the line. Then, she thought of something else. Actually, there's something I need. 2 people. Anya Kuznetsov and Cassandra Lee. They knew the dragon's den inside and out. Having them on board would make the transition seamless. Besides, the pie was too big for one person to eat alone. And what about your brother, Kevin? A voice in her head asked. He was an old hand at the den, too, but he didn't deserve a slice of this cake. His big sister was working her ass off to save up for a dowry to buy a husband, and she wasn't about to let her bratty little brother get a cut. He could help with the grunt work, but that was it. You two know each other, don't you? Why do you need me to play messenger? Asher was confused. We know each other, but we're not. Close, Raina said sheepishly. If I could handle it myself, I wouldn't bother you. Asher nodded. I'll see what I can do. Anya would probably agree. As for Cassie, the self-proclaimed queen of sapphic desire, he wasn't so sure. He called them both. As expected, Anya had no objections. When it was Cassie's turn, Asher's pulse quickened. He wasn't sure what she would say, but surprisingly, she agreed as well, even before he could offer her any incentives. He had figured the easiest way to get her on board would be to promise her a fresh batch of beautiful female recruits for her division. But when he mentioned it, she politely declined. Thanks, but I prefer to do my own recruiting, she'd said. I have a very specific type. Asher was a little surprised, but didn't press the issue. Maybe her standards were just that high. Several days passed. In a sprawling villa somewhere in the United States, Julian Nightmare, Kai threw his head back and roared with laughter. Idiots. I can't believe they both got caught. Thank God I was smart enough to get out of the country when I did. He just received the news from back home. Both Leo Flynn and Manny Marcos were now wanted fugitives in the States. Their assets were frozen, their passports flagged. Any conventional means of travel were cut off. Even with their connections, getting out of the country would be a logistical nightmare that would take time they didn't have. No need to rush back, boys, Julian crowed to the empty room. By the time you get here, the dragon's den will be mine. Ha ha. He didn't yet know they were dead. That was a closely guarded secret, but their wanted status was public knowledge. But Julian, you were Leo's subordinate, a small voice in his head whispered. Why betray him? Because I can. He answered silently. After their joint operation against the Vance family had backfired, Leo's promised rewards had never materialized. Instead, Julian's family operations in New York had been dismantled. He was furious. That he hadn't beaten Leo to a pulp before leaving was a miracle of self-restraint. So what if he took the dragon's den? What was Leo going to do about it? Come back and stop him. Julian was taking the den, and even if Leo did somehow make it back, it wouldn't matter. Julian's word was now law. The thought sent a thrill through him. He was seizing his moment. Not only were Leo and Manny gone, but the other key players, Anya, Cassie, and Kevin Gao, were also absent. Better yet, his spies reported that Cassie had already pulled her loyalists and assets out of the den. As for Anya, she was a lone wolf, uninterested in power. With them out of the picture, there was no one left in the dragon's den who could possibly challenge him. It was a done deal. The den cannot be without a leader, he said aloud, slipping on his glasses. His entire demeanor shifted, the feral glee replaced by the calm, cultured mask of a predator. I'm doing this for the good of the organization. If no one else wants this garbage, then I will gladly take it off your hands. He picked up his phone and dialed. Draft an invitation, he said when his confidant answered. A meeting of all remaining lieutenants. The topic, who is the next Dragon King? The Dragon's Den was a tangled web of alliances and rivalries. There were freelancers like Anya, mercenaries who joined for profit like Kevin Gao, and brainwashed fanatics like Manny Marcos who would have died for Leo. But the fanatics were a tiny minority. Julian, his man on the other end, said, his voice laced with concern. Perhaps we should wait. The Dragon King may be in the States, but he still has contingencies in place here. If he decides to strike back, we won't gain much. It was true. Leo's personality was such that if he couldn't have something, no one could. He would rather burn the entire organization to the ground than hand it over. But Julian was impatient. Wait for what? Waiting gets you killed. I'm going to strike now, while everyone is off balance. The Dragon King is fighting for his own survival back in New York. He doesn't have time to worry about us. And even if he does, I'm still taking the den. Those two fools, Leo and Manny, had cost him everything. It was time to collect the interest on his loss. Understood, his man replied. After giving a few more instructions, including taking a list of anyone who didn't show up, Julian hung up. He crossed the room to a vintage phonograph and placed his favorite record on the turntable. The rich, complex sounds of a classical symphony filled the air. He closed his eyes and began to move with the music, his steps graceful and precise. He was the picture of an elegant gentleman, a far cry from the sadistic killer feared throughout the underworld. Anyone watching would see a refined young man who probably couldn't even bring himself to kill a chicken. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, Julian said, his mood buoyant. He didn't stop dancing. A blonde, blue-eyed American secretary entered. She lacked the cultural nuance to read a room, a trait she mistook for honesty. Boss, you're officially a wanted man in your home country. They're calling you a bloodthirsty serial killer and claim to have evidence. Several of our business partners have called to pull their investments. They'd rather pay the breach of contract penalties than continue working with us. Julian's movements ceased. His body went rigid. The music continued to play. The secretary, however, didn't notice. Her attention had been captured by the symphony. It was a piece she knew well. She began to sway to the rhythm. The scene became surreal. The boss, frozen in place by catastrophic news, and his secretary, lost in the music, dancing just a few feet away. Julian stared at the dancing secretary, his face a mask of disbelief. The woman was utterly oblivious. Can't you see the look on my face? And you're dancing? He fought back the urge to strangle her. If he weren't still wearing his glasses, his mask of civility, he might have already done it. Forcing a smile that was more of a grimace, he said, "Is there anything else to report?" The secretary stopped dancing. "I don't think so, boss." Julian, the master of patience, clenched his fists. "Then you may go." "Okay." She nodded. Her contract didn't say anything about dancing on the job, so there was no reason to stick around. The moment she was gone, Julian slammed the phonograph off and stormed over to his computer. Using a VPN, he logged onto the U.S. news sites. It was all there, public record. The official bulletin from the NYPD forwarded to international agencies. It was true. Damn it, damn it, damn it. He ripped his glasses off, his civilized facade shattering. What did it all go wrong? With his identity as a killer exposed, he'd have to live in the shadows. He couldn't even walk down the street without being recognized as a monster. Crash! He kicked his solid oak desk, splintering the wood. Damn you all! Who's targeting me? Who is it? Don't let me find you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. He rampaged through the room, smashing everything in sight. The wail of sirens cut through his rage. He froze, creeping to the window to peer outside. A dozen police cars had surrounded the villa. His face darkened. He had left New York through legitimate channels, a businessman whose ventures had failed. This was different. They're trying to bury me, he snarled, a feral glint in his eyes. He wasn't going down without a fight. Surrender was not an option. He slipped out of the villa through a hidden passage in the basement. A necessary precaution in a country where anyone could own a gun. You always needed a back door. Just you wait, he thought, his mind racing. I'll take the dragon's den, and then I'll be back. With the den's resources, he could buy his way back to legitimacy. This was America, after all. Money could buy the best lawyers, who could bribe judges, who could intimidate witnesses. He knew the process by heart, but he didn't know who was pulling the strings. He didn't know that Asher Vance had already cut off every possible escape route. When the FBI finally stormed the villa, the blonde secretary was the one who let them in, her face a picture of shocked innocence. My boss? A serial killer? But he was such a handsome, charming Asian gentleman, she told the portly agent in charge. If I wasn't already dating 5 other guys, I totally would have tried to get his attention. Nobody can resist a man like that. Ma'am, please cooperate with our investigation, the agent said sternly, flashing his badge. Of course. This way, she said, leading the tactical team into the house. If he's really a monster, you have to catch him. It's just terrifying. By the time they cleared the villa, Julian Kai was long gone. At a large international airport in Los Angeles, passengers disembarked from a long-haul flight. I can't believe I'm back in this place, Cassandra Lee said, stretching like a cat in the sun. Anya Kuznetsov, pulling a rolling suitcase behind her, didn't look back. Are you happy to be back? Cassie hurried to catch up. Onna. If it weren't for Asher's request, I'd never set foot in this godforsaken country again. I was perfectly happy in my office. She lowered her voice. Did you get what I asked for? It's all taken care of, a new voice answered. A woman named Freya Ross, one of Cassie's former lovers and most trusted subordinates, had arranged everything. The safe house is ready, and your equipment is waiting. Cassie grinned and opened her arms. Freya, did you miss me? Freya blushed, but didn't pull away as Cassie enveloped her in a hug. Oh, you've put on some weight, Cassie purred, her hands roaming freely. Haven't you been keeping up with your training? She blew softly in Freya's ear. It was a game they both knew well. A few lewd whistles came from a group of men nearby. In America, two beautiful women embracing was a common sight, but it still drew attention. Cassie ignored them, but Anya cleared her throat softly. The small sound had an immediate effect. Cassie's legs nearly gave out. She was terrified of Anya. Ahem, let's be serious, Cassie said, releasing Freya. Her face became a mask of professional sternness. Freya, startled, remembered where she was. Anya was the world's top assassin. She might seem quiet and harmless, but those who saw her other side were 6 feet under. Freya didn't dare even look at her. Cassie, the house is ready, she whispered. Everything you need is inside. Cassie smiled and patted her shoulder. Good work. I knew I could count on you. I'll take you there now, Freya said, her body trembling slightly at Cassie's touch. Just then, her phone rang. She was about to decline the call, but Cassie stopped her. Answer it. Freya nodded and took the call. Yes, I'm with him now. What? What did you say? Her face went dark. How dare he? Does he really think no one can touch him? Oh, I see. He's cornered. That's why he's getting desperate. Okay, I'll tell Cassie. Don't worry. She hung up. What's wrong? Cassie asked. It's Julian Kai, Freya reported, her voice tight. He sent invitations to all the remaining lieutenants for a meeting. The bastard is trying to take over the entire Dragon's Den. He even said that anyone who doesn't show up is out permanently. Anya, who had been listening silently, remained impassive. The internal politics of the den didn't interest her. The nerve of that guy, Cassie scoffed, glancing at Anya. Seeing her friend's continued calm, she added, he's not going to be king for long. Their mission was to kill Julian Kai. A dead man can't rule anything. Well, hello there, ladies, a voice with a thick accent interrupted. A group of local thugs had sauntered over, drawn by the 3 beautiful women in the expensive car. You two handle this, Anya said flatly, opening the rear door of the red Maserati and getting inside. Cassie's good mood soured. Freya, give them a lasting impression. Teach them that hitting on the wrong women can be fatal. With that, she slid into the passenger seat, not wanting to share the back with the intimidating aura of Anya. The thugs, emboldened by the sight of the luxury car, started making crude remarks in English, assuming the women wouldn't understand. Dibs on the 2 in the car tonight. Yeah, their men back home can't handle them. They need a real man. Freya had heard enough. As one of the men reached for her, she moved. A single, powerful punch sent him sprawling, unconscious before he hit the pavement, blood gushing from his nose. His friend stared in shock. This slender woman had the power of a professional boxer. Before they could react, she took out another with a vicious kick to the groin. The sickening crunch echoed in the quiet parking garage. Fuck you, bitch, one of them yelled, pulling a handgun. It was useless. In moments, Freya had dismantled them all, leaving them broken and moaning on the concrete. They had learned a hard lesson. Some women were not to be trifled with. Inside a sleek, modern villa, Freya gave them the tour. The house is cleaned regularly. It's ready for you. Here are the keys. The fridge is stocked with enough food for a month, if you're careful. What's Julian Kai's current status? It was Anya who asked, her voice cutting through Freya's tour guide spiel. Freya's blood ran cold. This was the woman even Cassie feared. She quickly reported what she knew. He's wanted by his home country. The authorities here are cooperating, and Interpol is involved. They're actively trying to bring him in. I see, Anya said, her face unreadable. Cassie snorted. He's getting desperate, Anna. He's making a play for the whole den. I don't care who runs the Dragon's Den, Anya replied, her tone flat. I'm just here to kill him. The statement hung in the air, chilling in its simplicity. Coming from anyone else, it would have been laughable. Julian Kai was a notorious killer who had survived hundreds of assassination attempts. Coming from Anya, it was a statement of fact. You're the best, Anna, Cassie said, giving her a thumbs up. You'll get it done. Freya, meanwhile, felt like she was being watched by a predator. Anya's calm gaze was terrifying. Where's my equipment? Anya asked. Freya, startled, quickly led them to the study. She pressed a hidden switch, and a section of the bookshelf retracted into the floor, replaced by racks of gleaming weaponry. Knives, pistols, submachine guns, grenades, even an RPG launcher. It was a small armory. Anya walked to the racks and began examining the firearms, testing their weight and balance. Freya finally allowed herself to breathe. As long as Anya was occupied, she was safe. She tiptoed over to Cassie. "Cassie," she whispered. Cassie, who had been lost in thought, smiled and wrapped an arm around her. "What is it, my sweet little Freya?" Freya glanced nervously at Anya, but the assassin seemed oblivious. She blushed and fidgeted. "Cassie, should I stay tonight?" Cassie's smile widened. "What do you think?" Freya's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and fear. She nodded shyly. "Okay." "Oh, are you blushing?" Cassie teased, nibbling on her earlobe. "It's not your first time." Smack! Cassie playfully slapped Freya's rear. "Ah!" Freya yelped, then quickly covered her mouth, mortified. Anya was right there. Just then, as if on cue, Anya chambered a round into a rifle. The sharp click-clack echoed in the room. "If you two need to play," the Dragon Queen said without turning around, "you can go outside." It was meant as a genuine, if socially awkward, consideration. After her time with Asher, she had started to understand such things. But to Cassie and Freya, it sounded like a threat. "Sorry, Anna. Our mistake. We're leaving now," Cassie said, grabbing the pale-faced Freya and practically dragging her from the room. Anya, holding a Barrett .50 caliber rifle, tilted her head. "Did I do something wrong again?" she wondered aloud. "Or is my face just that scary?" She shrugged. It was a puzzle she couldn't solve, so she put it aside. The Barrett felt good in her hands, but it was too clumsy for her style. She returned it to the rack and continued her inspection, a goddess of war choosing her instruments of destruction. Out in the living room, Freya was shaking. "Cassie, I'm scared. Let's stay somewhere else tonight. I have other houses." She expected Cassie to agree, but she just shook her head. "No, I just got off a long flight. I want to rest." Freya's face fell. She had worked up the courage to ask, only to be rejected. A familiar pang of insecurity hit her. Does she have someone new? She wondered, her heart aching. Inside the heart of the Dragon's Den, in a conference room reserved for the highest echelons of leadership, Julian Kai sat at the head of the table. Flanking him were 2 men and 2 women, the remaining lieutenants. One man was obese, the other rail-thin. The women, by contrast, were stunning. One was a voluptuous, seductive woman in her 30s named Ursula Rohn. The other was a graceful beauty. "Ha ha ha. Thank you all for coming," Julian said, his smile warm and inviting as he adjusted his glasses. "It's an honor to have you all here." Ursula snapped open a silk fan, covering the lower half of her face. Her voice was like honeyed poison. "Oh, Julian darling, we're not all here, are we?" Ursula was ranked 4th in the den's power structure, and she had the loyalty of the fat man, Mason Wei, and the other beautiful lieutenant, Crystal Chio. She wasn't afraid to challenge Julian. Julian's smile didn't falter. "My dear Ursula, those who couldn't be bothered to return are no longer our members, are they? I gave a chance. It's not my fault they were." Inadequate. His words were a blatant dismissal of Leo Flynn. With the remaining lieutenants present, he cut straight to the point. Ursula's eyes crinkled into a smile. "You're so right, Julian. Anyone who missed this meeting has no right to call themselves a lieutenant." Mason Wei, the fat man, chuckled. "That's right. They've lost their voice here." The other 2 remained silent, which was its own form of agreement. "Since we're all on the same page," Julian began, his voice taking on a serious tone, "I won't mince words. The kingdom cannot be without a king. You've all heard what happened to our Dragon King. He won't be back anytime soon. Our enemies are circling, and our rivals would love nothing more than to see us burn." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I may not be perfect, but I believe I have what it takes to lead. I propose that I become the acting Dragon King, to manage the den's affairs until our king returns. And when he does, I will gladly hand the reins back to him." It was a lie, and everyone knew it. They also knew about Julian's own precarious legal situation, but they were playing along for a reason. The den had been rocked by Cassie Lee's departure. She had pulled all of her people and resources, a clear act of betrayal. Normally, they would have hunted her down and divided her assets. But without Leo to lead the charge, no one was willing to risk their own men. Only a fool like Manny Marcos would have blindly followed such an order. "The forces our Dragon King left behind," Ursula purred. "Are you confident you can handle them?" Leo had his loyalists, as did Manny. To seize real power, Julian would have to crush them both. "A dragon's den without its Dragon King is just a pile of sand," Julian sneered. "It will blow away in the wind. Leo is probably hiding in some backwater town, dodging the police. He has no time for us. This isn't for me. It's for all of us. Don't you agree, Ursula?" Ursula snapped her fan shut. Her smile could melt glaciers. You take the title of Acting Dragon King, but you offer us nothing? We want to support you, darling, but we lack motivation. Julian's eyes gleamed. And what kind of motivation did you have in mind? I am very flexible. Ursula rolled her eyes. Let's stick to business, shall we? Julian's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating look. I become the Acting Dragon King. The position of second in command goes to you. You will answer to no one but me. Oh, I don't think I could possibly take the number 2 spot, Ursula said, her playful demeanor returning. She was thinking of her, the terrifying woman who held that title. The untouchable nemesis, Anya Kuznetsov. Leo had made Anya his second in command for a reason. She had no interest in power, no faction of her own. She was loyal only to the contract. While few of the lieutenants truly feared Leo, all of them were terrified of Anya. Anya Kuznetsov was a lone wolf, her movements unpredictable. If she decided to hunt you, you were already dead. Ursula Rohn knew her limits. Besides, Julian was offering her a title with no real power. All the benefits would go to him, while she and the other lieutenants got nothing. Julian blinked, then chuckled awkwardly. My apologies. I was being thoughtless. Very well. New offer. Once I become Acting Dragon King, all the assets of the former king's loyalists, once we've acquired them, will be yours to divide. The position of second in command will remain with Nemesis, in title only. During my tenure, you will take orders from no one but me. This was the offer Ursula had been waiting for. Her smile bloomed. Now that's a generous offer. Are you sure it's not too much? If you think it's too much, Julian said, his voice dropping to a low growl, you can always find a way to repay me personally. Ursula knew the power her smile held over men. The thrill of the chase was everything. Let's see you become the acting king first, she purred. Julian's heart pounded. With Ursula on his side, her pet lieutenant, Crystal Chio, would be easy to win over. The thought of having both of them in his bed was intoxicating. They may not have been on the level of Anya or Cassie, but they were still magnificent prizes. With your help, it's a certainty, he declared. I will give you everything the old king gave you, and more. You should probably become the acting king before you make promises you can't keep. A reedy voice cut in. It was Dante Long, the skinny lieutenant. He was one of the few neutrals in the den, loyal only to the highest bidder. Julian's eyes narrowed into slits. Oh, you doubt me. Dante stood up. Become the acting king first. He turned to leave. He wanted no part of this power struggle. The water was too deep, and he had no desire to incur the wrath of Leo's unknown contingencies, or worse, Anya Kuznetsov. But in the new dragon's den, there was no room for neutrality. As Dante reached the door, Julian took off his glasses. His entire aura shifted. He lunged, a blur of motion. You think you can run? He hissed. Dante felt a surge of killing intent behind him. He spun around, his fingers crooked into claws, the eagle claw technique. Against any normal opponent, he would have been victorious. But Julian was a monster. Crack. Thud. Nightmare, I believe you. I believe you. Dante begged for his life. My men, my resources, they're all yours. Just let me live. Julian's smile only widened. Too late, Dante. You should have chosen a side sooner. Dante's blood ran cold. He understood now. Julian was making an example of him. The other lieutenants watched, impassive. No one would intervene. With a final, desperate roar, Dante burned his life force, launching one last suicidal attack. You son of a bitch. Even if I die, I'm taking a piece of you with me. For a fleeting moment, Julian felt a flicker of pressure. It wasn't fear. It was excitement. An hour later, Julian stood over Dante's mangled corpse, his clothes soaked in blood, some of it his, most of it Dante's. He had paid a price, a few deep gashes from the eagle claw, but he had won. He turned to Ursula and the other two, a crazed, bloody grin splitting his face. I will be the true king of the dragon's den. He let the statement hang in the air. Now, who's in favor? Who's against? Silence descended upon the conference room. Ursula smiled behind her fan. The other two lieutenants remained motionless. Why would they object? They stood to gain power and resources without lifting a finger. Julian was a rabid dog, and no one wanted to be his next target. Excellent, Julian said, his blood-soaked grin sending shivers down their spines. Since no one objects, the matter is settled. He glanced at the corpse on the floor. It had served its purpose. The coup was decided. That very afternoon, they would launch a swift, brutal attack on the remnants of Leo and Manny's forces, catching them completely off guard. Meanwhile, in another part of the Dragon's Den complex, Leo Flynn's most loyal commanders were holding their own meeting. That son of a bitch, Julian Kai, an old American veteran named Charlie roared. Holding a meeting of lieutenants without the king's permission. We all know what he's planning. Calm down, Charlie, a blonde woman named Catherine said. We know. Paul, any word from the king? Paul, another commander, took a long drag from his cigarette and shook his head. Nothing. Their leader, a stern Asian man named Douglas Lynn, slammed his hand on the table. Keep trying to contact the king, or even Manny Marcos. We need to reach one of them, he commanded. In the meantime, we avoid direct conflict, but we prepare for an attack. Douglas, Charlie interjected. Why don't we merge our forces with Mr. Marcos's men? These are desperate times. That bastard Julian is a black-hearted monster. Charlie's right, Paul added. The man's a psychopath. He's a rabid dog, Catherine agreed. I'll contact Manny's people immediately. Another commander, Gene E., declared. Douglas nodded. It was a sound strategy. Just as they were about to act, a frantic knocking came from the door. Mr. Lynn, Mr. Lynn, it's an emergency. One of the men opened the door to reveal a young, suit-clad subordinate, out of breath and panicked. What is it? Douglas demanded. Sir, it's a rebellion, the young man gasped. Julian Kai, that son of a bitch has rebelled. A collective shockwave went through the room. Douglas moved in a blur, grabbing the young man by the shoulders. What's happening outside? Speak, sir. You're hurting me, the man whimpered. Douglas immediately released him. Julian and the other lieutenants have launched an all-out attack on Mr. Marcos's forces, the man reported, his voice trembling. And they're here, too. They're outside. Many of our men are already dead. BM, Douglas shattered the conference table with a single blow. That dog, how dare he? The room erupted in outrage. They had been preparing for this, but they never expected it to happen so soon, so fast. Suddenly, a playful, mocking voice drifted in from the hallway. Rebellion? I'm just the acting Dragon King. How can that be a rebellion? Everyone froze. Standing in the doorway was Julian Kai, his clothes stained with fresh blood. Behind him stood Ursula Roan and a dozen heavily armed guards. Nightmare, Douglas said, his voice dangerously low. Leave now, and I will pretend this never happened. The Dragon King will never know. It was a bluff, and he knew it. Julian had moved too quickly. Julian just laughed. Trying to scare me with the king's name? Charlie, the old veteran, stepped forward. Mr. Kai, please, let's not be hasty. The dragon's den belongs to all of us. We could talk this out. Julian walked over to him, looking down at the old man. You want to talk? Yes, Mr. Kai, Charlie said, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Fine, let's talk. With a sudden, brutal front kick, Julian sent Charlie flying across the room. The old man landed in a heap, coughing up blood. The room exploded. You've gone too far. Young man, you are too arrogant. But for all their shouting, no one moved. They were facing a dozen rifle barrels and a blood-crazed psychopath. They yelled slogans of defiance, each one secretly hoping someone else would be the first to die. Julian surveyed the room, his smile widening. Ha ha ha. Pathetic. You're all pathetic. How did Leo ever surround himself with such cowards? He paused, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. Listen carefully. From this day forward, my rules are the only rules. The hell with your rules. Douglas roared, grabbing a chair and charging at Julian. Julian's eyes lit up with feral glee. Don't shoot, he ordered his men. I want to kill him myself. Ursula rolled her eyes at his theatrics, but signaled her men to keep their guns trained on the others. The fight was short and brutal. A sickening crack echoed through the room as Julian broke Douglas's arm, followed by another as he shattered his leg. Attack! Douglas screamed from the floor, his voice filled with agony and desperation. He won't let any of us live. Fight, or your families will be next. For a moment, killing intent filled the eyes of the other commanders. They were Leo's loyalists. They were dead men either way. Open fire, Ursula said, a bored expression on her face. The room erupted in a storm of automatic weapon fire. Julian stood in the center of the carnage, his arms outstretched, a look of ecstatic bliss on his face. The screams, the fear, the anger, it was all a beautiful symphony, and he was the conductor. He was the nightmare. When the shooting stopped, the room was a river of blood. Not a single one of Leo's loyalists was left alive. Julian and Ursula walked out of the room, stepping over the bodies. Ursula, my dear, Julian said, will you join me for dinner tonight? Ursula's mood was excellent. Of course. I happen to be free. A thrill shot through Julian. He wiped the blood from his face and put his glasses back on, his psychopathic grin replaced by a charming smile. I will prepare a meal that you will never forget. Just then, Ursula's phone rang. She answered it, and as she listened, The smile on her face froze. Julian noticed the change in her expression immediately. Before he could ask, Ursula's voice shot up several decibels, all traces of her flirtatious charm gone. What did you say? Say that again. Fine, I'm on my way. She hung up, her face a thundercloud. What happened? Julian asked, frowning. It's Mason Wei, she said, her voice tight. He's in trouble. Mason Wei and Crystal Chio had been assigned to take down Manny Marcos' faction. They had attacked at the same time as Julian. His side of the operation had gone smoothly. Hers had not. Mason Wei, a full lieutenant of the Dragon's Den, had been taken down. How? Julian demanded. It was unthinkable. Manny's forces were leaderless. Ursula looked him dead in the eye, her voice flat and cold. The mole. The name hit Julian like a physical blow. Kevin Gao. The day before the meeting, the kid had called him, asking for a piece of the pie. He claimed he only wanted some of the den's technical resources, not power. Julian had dismissed him. What harm could a teenage brat do? Kevin was stuck in New York. His resources here were minimal. Julian couldn't imagine how he'd pulled this off. You're thinking he acted alone, Ursula said, reading his mind. He didn't. The mole was the inside man. Someone else is pulling the strings. Who? Julian growled. I don't know yet. We need to get over there and support them, Julian said, rallying the men for the conference room. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions rocked the entire complex. The concussive force rattled the walls and sent dust raining from the ceiling. The blasts weren't stopping. They were getting closer, more intense. Julian and Ursula locked eyes. A silent, mutual suspicion passed between them. The timing was too perfect. It wasn't me, Ursula said, her voice cold. I have no reason to burn down my own investment. Neither do I, Julian replied. After a tense moment, the suspicion subsided, replaced by a shared sense of dread. A man stumbled in from the hallway, covered in dust and blood, his face a mask of terror. Enemy attack. Julian grabbed him. What's happening outside? The rival outfits. All of them. They're attacking us. All at once, the man stammered. Don't panic. I have everything under control, Julian said, trying to project an aura of calm for Ursula's benefit. But the man just shook his head frantically. There are hundreds of them. 600, maybe more. They have tanks. Artillery. The Dragon's Den headquarters was supposed to be a secret, fortified location. But to facilitate his own coup, Julian had pulled back the outer perimeter guards. Without them, the complex was vulnerable. He laughed, a harsh, grating sound of pure fury. Kevin Gao, you little bastard. I'll kill you. May you never have children. In that moment, it all became clear. Kevin Gao was the real mastermind. He hadn't just double-crossed him. He had sold them out to all their enemies. He had set them up to destroy each other from within, while the vultures circled outside, waiting to pick the bones. We have to get out of here, Julian said, the words tasting like ash. Through the tunnels. This place is lost. You're not going anywhere. The voice was calm, familiar, and utterly terrifying. It echoed from above. Everyone looked up. Several grenades, pins pulled, dropped from the ventilation shafts into the middle of the room. Get down, Julian screamed. He and Ursula dove for cover just as the world erupted in fire and shrapnel. These were military-grade explosives, far more powerful than standard grenades. The hallway became an inferno. Through the smoke and chaos, a figure dropped silently from a vent, a micro SMG in each hand. She landed in a crouch and came up firing, sweeping the room in a devastating arc of controlled bursts. Julian and Ursula stared, their blood running cold. They knew that silhouette. They knew that voice. A primal fear seized them. Kill her. Julian shrieked, his voice cracking. I want her dead. 50 million for the man who puts a bullet in her. I'll match it. Ursula screamed, scrambling for cover. And a promotion. Anything you want. Their men, dazed and wounded from the blast, didn't recognize the figure in the smoke. But they understood the reward. Greed overcame fear. A wounded man could still pull a trigger. And $50 million was worth dying for. The hallway became a maelstrom of gunfire. Bullet casings rained down, mixing with the blood and bodies on the floor. But the figure moved like a ghost, a blur of motion that seemed to exist between the bullets. Men fell, one after another, their bodies riddled with holes. What the hell is she? A demon. Not a single shot has hit her. It's impossible. Oh my God. She's an angel. Shut up, George, and reload. Julian and Ursula watched in horror. The angel of death in the flesh was a force of nature, a hurricane of controlled violence. This was Nemesis. We need to make her waste her ammo. Julian yelled to Ursula over the gunfire. If she runs out of bullets, we might have a chance. Wounded, we can take her. They didn't know that Anya was far more dangerous with a blade than a gun. Bang! A single shot, perfectly placed, found its mark. George went down, a neat hole in the center of his forehead. The remaining 4 men panicked. It's a monster. Only Nemesis could fight like this. Wait, do you think she's... Nemesis? Anya Kuznetsov. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. The realization dawned on them all. They weren't fighting a woman. They were fighting a legend. And they were losing. They had been sent to their deaths. Mommy, I fought Nemesis. One of them whimpered. We surrender. Another cried, dropping his weapon. Bang! Julian shot the ceiling. Anyone who surrenders, I'll kill myself, he roared. She won't let you live anyway. She never leaves survivors. His words, and Ursula's reinforcement, reignited their desperate courage. It was better to die fighting than to be executed like dogs. Let's dance, bitch. One of them screamed a final war cry as a specially made combat knife, thrown from the shadows, embedded itself in his heart. A bullet to the mouth silenced him forever. Here, Julian said, grabbing 2 rifles from a dead soldier and tossing one to Ursula. She used her knife. That means she's low on ammo. This is our only chance. He took a deep breath. I'll draw her fire. You provide cover. We either kill her here, or we run, and she hunts us down for the rest of our lives. I, for one, would rather face the nightmare head-on. Ursula chambered around, her eyes hard as steel. The immortal myth of Nemesis, she said, her voice a low growl, ends today. Julian grinned, a true monstrous smile. That was the woman he admired. Nemesis, he bellowed, stepping out from behind cover and opening fire. You think you're so tough? Come and kill me. The conference room had no windows. There was only one way out, the door. And the ventilation shaft, 5 meters up, it was a kill box, and the killer was inside with them.